Good evening. The Lawrence Alliance for Education Board meeting for December 13th will now come to order. The time is 6:08. Maria, please take attendance.
Yes. Dr. Dolores Calaf,
Present.
Edgar de Leon, Arlene Garcia,
She'll be late.
Juana Matias,
Present.
Maria Muller,
Present.
Mayo Brian de Peña,
Present.
Patricia Mariano.
Present. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There are no items for executive session tonight, so we'll move on to public participation. Mr. Marley.
Humayun Mali, 53 Chester Street. Good evening, honorable members. It has been 1 year since departure of Honorable Superintendent Cynthia Paris. We still does not have a permanent superintendent for Lawrence Public School. Citizens are asking perhaps the salary of $260,000 per year is not enough to hire a permanent superintendent for Lawrence Public School. Administration must know we need a permanent superintendent for Lawrence Public School in order to liberate Lawrence Public School from receivership. Is impossible to dream. The independence of Lawrence Public School only possible if the Commissioner Raleigh approves this plan. Lawrence teachers, thank you for excellent job. You are the most important reason for success of Lawrence Public School. We demand the best compensation for our teachers, Lawrence Public School, paraprofessional and cafeteria workers. In this great nation, number one responsibility of every citizen is support of teachers union. The future of this great nation, our great city, depends on how well we support our teachers and their union. As the great Nelson Mandela said, education indeed the most powerful weapon to change the world. This change is only possible if we support our teachers' union. In this wonderful season of hope and joy, we wish the best holidays for Lawrence Public School employees and Lawrence teachers. Thank you for doing an excellent job. Enjoy your Christmas vacation. We are united to support Lawrence Teachers Union. Thank you for an excellent job.
Thank you, Mr. Miley. We'll move on to the chair's report. I would like to give you an update on the superintendent's search. Last Friday, December 8th, a community letter was released announcing the superintendent's search and the opportunities for stakeholders to participate in the search. A superintendent webpage is available on the school department website. Details about community meetings and a link to the community survey is available. On-site interviews and focus groups, these will take place on January 17th and 18th. Representatives of the ALMA Advisory Group will be here tonight, in January to talk to students, staff, members, and community leaders. Community meetings will be held at the Patham on January 17th from 6 to 8. Another will be held at right here at the South Lawrence East School on January 18th from 6 to 8. Virtual community meetings will be hosted in late January. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Sylvia Flowers and I believe Eliana Perea from the ALMA Advisory Group to share more information about their work and further plans about our superintendent's search. So I'll now turn it over to Sylvia.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Mariano. My name is Sylvia Flowers from the ALMA Advisory Group, and I'm excited to meet the full board of the Lawrence Alliance for Education tonight and share a little bit about our superintendent search process. Eliana will be joining us momentarily, but I'd like to introduce another colleague of ours, Janae Harley, who is also on the Zoom and will be part of the team supporting this project. Next slide. Thank you so much. So I want to start with introductions and share a little bit about our organization, and then want to spend some time talking about our shared purpose, working together with the LAE, and our shared understanding of our roles, and then share a little bit about the timeline and our plan for community engagement in the coming month. Next slide. So I bring you greetings from Monica Santana Rosen, who is our CEO and founder. Alma Advisory Group was founded in 2016, and our goal is to create the conditions where people and organizations can do their best work on behalf of the students that they serve. Monica founded this organization 7 years ago, and we chose the name Alma because it means to foster. And our goal is to help you and our organizations reach your vision and goals faster and more sustainably because we worked together and supported you in your journey. For the Lawrence Public School District Search, next slide. We have a team assembled who will be dedicated to supporting this project. You have Janae on the line tonight, as I introduced her. Janae typically supports our superintendent searches through the interview and screening process, and she does a lot of candidate communication for us. And she may be a part of our community engagement team when we come in January. We're finalizing our team details now. Naja Thompson is a member of our sourcing and recruiting team. Naja spends a lot of time talking to potential candidates, recruiting and sourcing candidates, and attracting them to these positions. And while Alma is headquartered in Chicago, our team members are across the country. So Naja hails from Miami, Florida, and has worked in the Midwest as well as in the South Florida area. Janae hails from Pittsburgh and Washington and Arizona, and now lives in Nashville. Eliana Perea is a native New Yorker who is living in Atlanta, Georgia now, and she will be supporting us with our community engagement work. Nita Lasaponko currently resides in Dallas, and she does a lot of our data analysis and some of our back-end work to support the search. And then Venus Velez is based out of New York City. She also does some work to support community engagement, candidate communication, and she does a lot of our business work as well. Next slide. So I want to spend some time with you all today, getting your feedback and input on our shared purpose and our shared understanding of the role. Next slide. I spent some time with the subcommittee, and we always start with this sort of blanket statement, and we want to get your input on what we should consider in our work together. So our goal is to recruit, screen, and select the next collaborative and inclusive superintendent of Lawrence Public Schools. And our purpose is to lead a transparent superintendent search process, engaging as many people as possible, guided by the input of the Lawrence staff, students, families, partners, leaders, and community, and designed to mitigate bias every step of the way. And we got a little bit of input early on as we've been meeting with Chairperson Mariano and the members of the subcommittee. And so we want to open up the conversation right now to hear from the rest of the LAE. What else is missing? What else should we consider? Are there other core values that you want to follow throughout this search? And I'll just note that the words written in red were some of our initial brainstorms and then the additions that your colleagues added. So I'd love to hear others' thoughts.
Dolores?
Thank you, Sylvia, for this presentation. I guess I can jump in through you, Madam Chair. You know, it says, I mean, staff, I assume teachers, when you guys say staff, both admin and the teachers that make up our school district. Just wanted to clarify that I think that's really important because that's the person that's going to lead and create a culture for our school district, and teacher retention is really important if we want to see student outcomes. But also like something on student outcomes. Like I love the inclusivity and the, you know, collaborative approach, but we want to lead this district with the priority that we want to increase student outcomes and ensure that we're, you know, creating a pathway for our students to excel and reach their full potential. I think is critically important.
I'm adding that to my notes. Thank you for that. And just for language purposes, and it's okay if staff does not sort of resonate with you all, would you want us to specify Lawrence, teachers, administrators, students, families, da, 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 da? We certainly want the language to match how you all talk about the work and how you talk about the community that makes up Lawrence. So happy to make any adjustments.
All right, Dolores, go ahead.
Yes, in my mind, I think it's important to have someone who is at least bilingual, preferably someone who is from this area that understands our city, our assets, our needs, someone who, how would I say, somebody who comes out across as a people person. I would say that I rather see someone who is connected to the cultural component of the city. And so I understand that all the other requirements about, you know, accreditations and things like that is obvious. But for me, I think it's somebody who needs to bring together, aside from the staff and teachers and support staff, is someone who really is going to be a leader that helps others to become leaders and not just stay in the office.
Thank you, Dolores.
Thank you.
Mia, do you have? Maria?
Any other comments or additions, any other values that you want reflected in our shared purpose working together? And obviously, you know, we're going to spend a lot of time building the job profile. So this statement is really uniting us, Alma and the LAE, in our work together. And the job profile itself will certainly illuminate the values for the next leader. So we won't be capturing all of the values for the superintendent in this statement. It's really going to guide our work together. It's going to be what we come back to as we design a search process that meets your needs.
Edgar, are you on? Edgar? No. Any other comments from the board?
I guess my only question is, Sylvia, is, designed to mitigate bias every step of the way. I feel like I'm not opposed to that. I think we want a transparent process, but I also feel like that sentence assumes like there may be bias in the process, and would just love to kind of get your reaction to my thought on that.
Yeah, so certainly Alma's work is really about capacity building. And just to give you a little bit of history, when we started the consulting practice, we really started helping school district teams and HR departments redesign and rethink how they recruit and retain teachers and leaders. And so what we found in rethinking and reimagining some of the HR practices that we found, ways that we were able to diversify the teaching staff and support districts in developing those processes meant that we had to spend a lot of time on anti-bias training, thinking about the ways in which bias shows up in selection processes and in districts and in nonprofit organizations. And so as we did our district level work, the executive search part of our work naturally came out of that. Our administrators would say, well, you really helped us think about our teacher recruitment process. Can you help us find this chief academic officer? Or can you help us find this, COO? Because all of the things that you put in place at the teacher and school leader level apply at these cabinet levels as well. And so that's how kind of our executive search practice grew. And so many of those learnings are things that we build into the selection processes for superintendent searches and other executive level roles, because what we found is the processes that we employ tend to allow women and leaders of color to get to the finalist rounds at higher rates than some of the more traditional practices that we've seen in executive search world. And we know now, we can look across the country and see that the number of women and people of color in superintendent roles does not match the diversity of many of the schools and districts. And so this statement is sort of foundational to the way that Alma designs a process. And we typically want anyone who's involved in our interview processes to go through our anti-bias training, because we recognize that everybody brings bias to the table. And then we control for it and we challenge each other to make sure that we're staying focused on what's most important in the competencies. So that's a
That
long-winded answer, Wanda, but that's kind of where that comes from for us.
No, and it makes perfect sense. I was actually interpreting it differently, and actually love the fact that this is included into the DNA of what you guys do. So great, thank you.
Thank you. Before I move to the next slide, so what I heard from some of the comments tonight, and I just was sort of wordsmithing the document and wondering how this sits with you all if we make a small edit. Our goal is to recruit, screen, and select the next collaborative, inclusive, and outcomes-driven superintendent of Lawrence Public Schools. Our purpose is to lead a transparent superintendent search process, engaging as many people as possible, guided by the input of the Lawrence teachers, administrators, students, families, partners, leaders, and community, and designed to mitigate bias every step of the way. Wondering how that change sits with you all.
Arlene, do you have anything? I know you just came in, but do you have anything that you would like to add to that shared purpose?
And that shared purpose is for,
The second paragraph.
right. No, I think I'm satisfied. Definitely the engaging is very good.
Thank you. Well, this statement is not fixed. So as we learn more about each other and our values, we can come back and make any changes. But this will be foundational to how we work together over the next few months. Next slide. So I want to share a little bit about the typical roles of Alma and the role that we play versus the role that the LAE will play. So we, as your search firm, will lead and the design and execution of this process. We will want to engage the community and the board to really clarify what are the skills that are most needed for the Lawrence Public School District. We're obviously going to recruit strong candidates to the pool. We're going to design an equitable, transparent, and rigorous hiring process. We want to engage candidates and make sure that they know as much as they can about the district and the search, and that we're managing their expectations as well. We pride ourselves on high touch candidate communication and making sure that candidates are taken care of through these processes and have a good experience with us. We will be your facilitator and help you in your decision making at each step of the way. And then we will use all the information gained in this process to really help inform the induction and transition planning for your permanent superintendent or your next superintendent. The LAE is really setting the direction and ensuring the success of this project. You all will help us identify groups of stakeholders that we need to meet with and engage with, and we've already begun some of that work. You're going to help us communicate and connect with the community and all stakeholders so that we are creating a transparent and accessible process. Typically, the LAE and the board engage the media and handle any crisis communication. And then, of course, we would want your active participation in all aspects of the design, interview, and selection of the final candidate. So your input really means a lot at every step of the process. Next
Quick
slide.
question, Sylvia.
Oh, go
before
ahead.
we move on to the slide. I know you guys engage with us in terms of the direction of who you're engaging. Are you talking to anyone else in the public school ecosystem? Are you talking to the state? Are you talking to the Department of Education and getting direction from them? I'd love to get an understanding of who else you're engaging with beyond just the LAE board.
Yeah, so we have, and I think the next slide talks about the search subcommittee. So next slide. So we also have a small subcommittee that we are going to be working with, and we're going to find the appropriate time for everybody to be able to join those meetings. Really, the search subcommittee is made up of 3 members of the LAE at this point, and they're really working with us, blocking and tackling and figuring things out. So that group is really directing us to make sure that we're meeting the overall board's expectations. They're sort of the representatives on the key sort of day-to-day decisions that we need. And they're making sure that we're keeping communication with the full board, and that any key decisions are sort of brought back to the full body to ensure we have that buy-in. And then they're doing some problem solving. We do also meet with a couple of representatives from DESE, so they're also in those meetings, to your point. So we're also meeting with them. And then the community engagement work and making sure that we're providing information to the community. We have engaged the district communications team and the operations team to really help us execute and have successful community events in January. Just last night, Dr. Rodriguez gave us some time on his coffee chat, so we were able to share with the community some of the upcoming meetings that we'll have in January, and we really appreciate, the ability to connect directly with any existing groups that exist that have time on the calendar. So as we talk about our community engagement work, we'll be sharing a more detailed plan of all of the people that we're talking to over the course of this next month. Next slide. And I want to share a little bit about our overall timeline and then the plan for community engagement. Next slide. So typically, our superintendent searches take about 4 months from start to finish, and know we're about to go into the holiday season. So most of December and January will be spent gaining stakeholder input, really learning as much as we can about what is most important to the district and the community. All of that really forms the foundation of our work going forward. So we'll use all of the input from our stakeholder engagement to inform the job description, and to inform how we recruit and source candidates for the role, as well as how we design the screening process. So we anticipate that shortly after our visit in January, we will finalize the job profile with you all's input, and then we'll begin recruiting for the role between January and February. February and March will be primarily spent on interviewing and finalizing our selection process. And we think by the end of March, early April, we will be getting close to the finalist round. And ideally by April, we will be in a place where the LAE can make a formal offer and begin to think about transition and induction.
Sylvia, quick question. We're coming up to December. You lose a week or two with the holiday. Is this timeline of stakeholder engagement, for December, January, in terms of doing meaningful engagement, going to be enough with the fact that we have some holidays in between?
Yeah, so what we're doing now is we're doing a lot of our one-on-one meetings with key stakeholders. And I'll share a little bit more about what's coming next. And then January is when we'll be on site and hope to engage as many people as possible in person in Lawrence. Next slide. So there are 3 primary activities for community input. The first are the community gatherings, which Chairperson Marciano mentioned. We are going to be the plan is to be in Lawrence on January 17th and 18th. We have 2 evening sessions planned at Partham Elementary and South Lawrence East Elementary. We're also conducting a variety of interviews and focus groups, both before we arrive in January, but also during the day while we're there. So we will be meeting with staff, students, teachers, principals, union leadership, community partners. All of those focus groups and interviews allow us to have deeper conversations that are more role-alike conversations. And then the plan is also to launch a community survey. And so we hope to get the survey launched before we leave for the holidays, and we'll plan to keep it open through probably around January 20th. Shortly after our visit, we'll close the survey and then be able to synthesize those results. And so the survey helps us to reach as many people as possible, and particularly those who are not able to attend one of our evening events. Next slide. So community input for us starts here in December, January, but it actually is part of the process from start to finish. So first and foremost, the community input helps us strengthen the job description, the job profile, and the competencies that we'll use throughout this process. So those competencies are used throughout the selection and screening process. And we continue to go back to what the community and stakeholders have identified as most important. We hope to learn as much as possible from people's lived experiences in the district. And so many of the examples that people share with us, we can use in the screening process to design potential interview questions and potential scenarios for candidates to really demonstrate that they have the experience and skills to meet the needs of the community. And then lastly, we hope that community, various stakeholders will be involved when we get to the finalist stage, and we'll have the opportunity to interact with potential candidates. And then their feedback will be shared with the LAE to help inform their final decision. Next slide. So another point where we want to get you all's input is some of the things that some questions we have. How do we make sure that we capture all the communities that we want to be sure to talk to? What do you hope to learn from this community engagement process? How will we know if we've had a successful community engagement process throughout this search? And are there any existing opportunities that we need to be aware of now so we can plan to attend either virtually or while we're there in January?
Are those questions for us, Sylvia?
Yes, yes, they are.
I guess my question to you is, you're working in a district that is highly underserved. Language barrier is a thing. Parents are thinking of putting food on the table, living paycheck to paycheck. How do you meaningfully engage? Like, what are your metrics? Like, how do you define or say, we were actually able to meaningfully engage community and bring in input, knowing some of the barriers that we are up against?
Yeah, I think that's why we rely very heavily on the LAE. We rely on the district to tell us what works best to get your community out, to get your community to complete surveys. What are the ways in which we need to operate in order to maximize participation? So we worked in one district where, for example, it's important to have childcare at these events. So we should plan in advance to have childcare at our community gatherings. If food is a draw, should we be providing food? Food for the children, snacks, things that are going to bring people out to these events. I think making sure that the folks who are in the know are identifying the organizations who have input and influence, and that we're leveraging social media and others to spread the word. We find, not everyone's going to answer an ALMA email. So who are the people that can help push this word out, who are known, who are connected in the community, and who can help us be successful? We certainly keep track of survey participation. We want to know, how does this compare to other districts where we have led superintendent searches? So we are doing some comparison behind the scenes and sharing that data to say, hey, this survey participation is really low. What can we do to get this out? Is it robocalls? Is it text messages? Do we need to have iPads at the community engagement events so that people can fill them out in real time? So we'll want to work with the LAE and the subcommittee, as well as the district communications team and the family engagement team, to make sure that we are exhausting all possible options.
That's helpful. Thank you for that context.
What thoughts do you all have? Like, what will make you all feel satisfied that we have successfully engaged the community?
I think, Sylvia, speaking for me, I'm the optimist, I think. When we do have the new superintendent, I hope that no one comes up to the LAE board or to any other member of the community and say that I never had the opportunity to participate in the search. I think this is where the hard work begins for us, making sure that that we've reached every segment of the community. Letters, I sent invitations out last Monday to the elected officials, asking them to sign up for their one-on-ones. and I guess this is my time for a commercial, if you don't mind, Sylvia. If you are an elected official and watching this and have not taken the opportunity to sign up for your one-on-one, please do so before Friday. We would like to have these completed before the end of the month. So thank you.
So we plan to spend most of December having those one-on-one meetings, so that we have a good sense of the community's needs, and we've captured the input, and really built our list of people that we need to talk to. So that's our goal, and for those of you who have not met with us, that will be one of the questions. Is there anyone else that we need to talk to? Because we want to have a long and robust list.
Can you share that list that you currently are working off of, Sylvia, with us, just so that we can add or make suggestions?
Yes, we have shared that with the subcommittee, and we will make sure the rest of the LAE has the spreadsheet and can populate that as well. We're looking for the name, contact information of whomever we should be talking to. Any other questions about how we get ready for January?
Do we have a budget for that outreach, the robocalls, the social media, putting paid media behind that? Do we have a budget that we could leverage to ensure that, you know, looking back, we can say we exhausted all efforts?
That is a great question. We have been working with the district comms team on the variety of ways that we should be sharing this. We already have a district website. We have a landing page on the district website where information about the search is currently posted, where information about the community gatherings is available. We're designing a flyer that can go out to parents and be pushed out on social media. We're developing a list of other avenues for social media and community partners who might be willing to share this information. We've talked about print media a little bit, and how we do a press release to, I think it's called, is it the Eagle, the Tribune, the Eagle?
The Tribune, we could do El Mundo, which is a Spanish-speaking newspaper. So I'd love to connect offline. I love that you guys are thinking about this, and, you know, maybe we just have a social media toolkit where easy lifting for people, where it's the flyer you guys are designing with sample language. We're sending it to all of our public officials, and then thinking about media, just thinking like, if anyone ever would want to come and say this LAE board or ALMA did an exhaust efforts, I'd love to have documentation in terms of like everything we did behind, you know, media, communications, engagement, et cetera, around, you know, engagement with the community.
Great, thank you. Next slide. So some of the pitfalls we want to solve for is exactly what we're talking about, maximizing the awareness and participation. Have we exhausted all of our resources to push this out? Ensuring
Radio.
as many, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, radio's big, you know, it just is. It's the way people consume information and get the news in Lawrence. You know, how are we engaging that conglomerate? I think it's also important. And it's not to say that I'm happy to support, like happy to work with you offline and making sure that we're figuring some of these things out. Just again, to make sure people feel like they're being included.
Thank you. And we're taking notes, believe me. And any other unique channels that people can think about. And then, of course, we have these community meetings planned. You know, we've never had more people show up than we can handle, but we're already thinking if more people show up who would prefer their session be in Spanish only. Like, what is the plan for that? So both Monica and Eliana will likely come and they can do sessions solely in Spanish. We're also working with the district team to make sure that we have translation for any of our Haitian Creole families, as well as families who would need Portuguese. We are also making sure that our survey is going to be translated in at least those 4 languages to make sure that it is accessible to the growing languages that are in Lawrence. And welcome any other input on how to really maximize this participation.
Any
Lana, you
comments?
came off mute. Were you thinking something else?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's okay. All right, next slide. So here are our proposed questions that we are going to ask parents, and the structure of our community gatherings are really designed to be intimate. We want people to be able to share their lived experiences. What are the things that they want? What's the kind of education they want for their children? What's working well? We know that there are good things happening in the district, so we want to hear about those. We want to be able to lift those successes up as we're talking to candidates. Not everything needs to be changed, so we want to hear what do people believe is working well and should be protected by the next superintendent, and then what are those areas of improvement. So first, we're really learning about the district, and then we drill down into the role of superintendent and what are the skill sets or experiences that will be most important for someone to have in order to be successful in this role. And so even in the opening, we heard a little bit about, what people want. Someone who recognizes the assets of the community, someone who's a people person, someone who's able to unify and bring people together, and it's going to help others develop and grow in their leadership. And so we'll want to hear more of that. That will again form the basis of our competencies. And then we love to get feedback from our groups. What would they like to see from Alma that would demonstrate to them that what they shared made a difference in this process? And that goes back to Chairperson Mariano's comment about you want people to leave this experience knowing that they did make a difference and that their input mattered. Any feedback on these questions? They're not set in stone, so if you all have any input, let us know.
I think we're all set, Sylvia.
Great. All right, next and last slide. So our immediate next steps, we want to complete all of our one-on-one interviews, hopefully before the holidays. We're also, as Chairperson Mariano mentioned, we're scheduling calls with the school committee and any other elected officials before we come on site. We hope to have our community survey finalized so that we can launch it before the holidays. And then we want to identify and continue to identify the stakeholders that we'll meet with during the site visit. And then lastly, the promotion and the awareness building for our January events are on the horizon. So those are our immediate next steps. Thank you so much. Any questions before I turn the meeting back over to you all?
Any questions from the board?
No question.
Mayor?
Yes, I don't have a question, but maybe it's very important for the whole community. In the past, when the community needs a new superintendent, the city or the moment political, are doing surveys, doing everything, looking for very important person in the community, but never reflect exactly the community looking for a student. And in my personal perception, the final decision for any time the city need new superintendent is a very political decision. Never take it. That's my perception because I'm parent. I had a kid in the public school system, and never reflect the idea the community have for new superintendent. Finally, doing everything as the community, make a question to the community, the official letter, but the decision, the final decision, take it 2 or 3 political in Boston or local political have a power in Boston, and I waiting. And the next superintendent selection reflects the exactly the community parents waiting for many years, because the problem is not the superintendent. The problem in Lawrence is a political issue. Political have more power over the community. It's time to looking for the real superintendent. Who is the superintendent? The superintendent need many questions. Number one question is, what is the connection the new superintendent have to the community? That's very important. But in the past, it's more important is the superintendent have a good connection to the political. It's time to looking for connection to the people, connection to the student, connection to the parents. It's time to put a political issue outside or behind. That's my commentary. You know. I don't have a question at this moment, but I waiting. The new superintendent reflects, parents, students, and the whole community. No political issue. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Any other comments? Arlene?
Yeah, I definitely, what the mayor said, and I think Ms. Flowers and I, when we conversed, we talked about that. We have outsiders coming in that, have all this strength, all these experience, but can't get, and connect with the community. They hide up in their ivory tower, and I'm sorry that I'm using that verbiage, but they can't come down to the trenches and really know and feel the pain of all the people that are in the community.
Dolores?
Well, I just want to second what the mayor just said, because that's the first thing when I had the interview with Eliana was, it's got to be somebody who knows the people here, that understands the ins and outs, that is culturally connected, and who comes with the idea that everybody's going to win. It is a very hard job, he can say. But and as I'm listening to all of you, I'm thinking about him, like knowing how hard it is to do this kind of job between politics and community, and making a difference in the lives of not only the students, but families, parents. How many parents would love to be more connected, but given life challenges. Sometimes they don't have the time, and we have to figure out a way to be here, to be connected. And so that's what I'm looking forward. I think this is a great opportunity for all of us who live in this city and that we love it.
Pat, I just have a quick comment. I mean,
Go
whether or
ahead,
not,
Maria.
regardless of who ends up being the final candidate, I think that's where the LAE board work is going to be very important, as well as the school committee. I think it is we're accountable for guiding this person or for just supporting this person in learning the community or connecting with the community or just supporting this person in being successful and meeting the community needs. So I think the selection of a superintendent is just the first step. And I think the board and the LA board as well job is going to be critical in the success of the superintendent as well.
I see this process, if we get it right, and I know we will, this is going to be a win-win for the community. Whether citizens have students in the school system or not, we all benefit by a school system that is moving forward and children are receiving the best possible education. People will be drawn to Lawrence when they hear how great our educational system is. So this whole process and the need to connect with the community is very, very important to all the citizens, not just the parents of children in the schools, but to everybody. Sylvia?
Thank you so much. We're taking all of this in and we're going to synthesize and summarize all of this feedback. And it will be part of our report back to you, and it will be part of how we think about this job description. So thank you so much for the opportunity to meet with you all as a group. And we hope to come back to you in January after our site visit to report out on what we've learned. And then we'll work with the subcommittee to schedule specific times that we're reporting back to the LAE so that you all are informed about the process at every step of the way.
Thank you, Sylvia, and your team for being with us tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Thank you to the committee members. The next item on my chair's report is to introduce you to Diana Santiago, the senior attorney, and Julia Landau, who's with us on Zoom, the senior project director from the Massachusetts Advocates for Children. MAC is the leading advocacy organization in the state protecting the rights of students with disabilities. Their role consists of working with the state legislature, training and mobilizing parents and advocates to defend special education. I'd like to welcome Diana and Julia to our meeting. Welcome.
Thank you. Chairwoman Mariano, Superintendent Rodriguez, and the rest of the mayor and the rest of the board for the opportunity to present here today. I'm Diana Santiago. As you said, I'm a senior attorney, senior education attorney at Mass Advocates for Children. And I'm going to present briefly to provide some background and context on special education in Lawrence, with a focus on inclusion, and then I'm going to pass it over to a panel of 3 incredible Lawrence parents who are parents of children with disabilities in the district to speak about their experiences. Next slide. So for over 50 years, the mission of Mass Advocates for Children has been to remove barriers to educational and life opportunities for children and youth. We do individual and advocacy through our helpline, and also through individual representation of parents, which then informs our advocacy at the systemic level, at the school district, state agency, and legislative levels. We also do parent and professional training and community engagement. And for almost 15 years, MAC has coordinated a parent group in Lawrence of parents of children with disabilities, which has, in addition to our case advocacy, informed our advocacy at the school district level. So as many of you likely know, federal and state special education law covers students with all types of disabilities, whether autism, emotional impairment, intellectual disability, and the intention is to provide equal educational opportunities for students regardless of disability. So access to services, instruction, and appropriate placements to meet all of their learning needs resulting from their disabilities. The lawmakers have recognized the importance of parent involvement in special education and, in fact, require parent involvement during certain key points in the process. And decisions regarding the services and supports that students need in special education are based on what students need, rather than what services may be available in the district. And if a student with a disability is also an English learner, then the law requires testing and services to meet the dual needs of that student. So a little bit about special education with data in Lawrence Public Schools. Next slide, please. So this slide shows students with disabilities in substantially separate classrooms in Lawrence from 2018 to 2023. I see the numbers are really, really small, but you can see that there was a dip in terms of placements in substantially separate classrooms, which is a more restrictive placement outside of the general education setting for students with disabilities, and how it's increased slightly since that time, since COVID, and is now currently 13.8%. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is the percent of students not meeting expectations on the 10th grade English Language Arts MCAS according to disability status. You can see that for all students, this number is not where we would want it to see, where we would want it to be in the district, at 80% not meeting expectations. And for students with disabilities, the situation is even more significant, or the need is even more significant, with 98% of students with disabilities not meeting expectations on this MCAS. And this slide shows students with disabilities percentages of chronic absenteeism according to disability status, and you can see that students with disabilities have a 9%, are chronically absent 9 percentage points higher than all students in the district in 2023. And these are some other priority concerns that we've heard from families, and through our case advocacy, we know that the administration and the Lawrence Alliance for Education, you all, are aware of and are working to address these issues. And we really appreciate the opportunity to have parents come and speak about some of these concerns. So studies show that students with disabilities who spend more time in general education settings have higher math skills, reading skills, better scores on standardized tests, improved communication skills, and social interactions, and research also shows benefits for non-disabled peers who made more progress in reading and math in inclusive settings, better standardized test scores, higher graduation rates, and increased social and emotional development. And this again will be illustrated by some of the parents who will speak. So, and then one additional important point, that inclusion does not mean quote-unquote dumping students in general education settings without the supplementary aids and services they require. That is not what we mean by inclusion, which requires a thoughtful team determination regarding what the classroom and the student will need to be able to be effectively included in the classroom setting. And so we're very optimistic at MAC, and I know a lot of our families are, that Lawrence is well situated to apply these best practices, and in fact is already applying some of them to increase opportunities for inclusion for students with disabilities. The Lawrence CPAC, and we have the chair of the CPAC here who will be speaking in a moment, creates a space for parents to provide input and to share their experiences with the district. The Student Support Services Department, under Arlene Riedinger's leadership, has devoted resources, including staffing and support to expand inclusionary options for students. And the district has also undertaken efforts to implement collaborative problem solving to reduce disciplinary exclusion and to increase problem solving skills among staff and students. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Judeli.
So, hi, my name is Judeli. I'm here to share my experience being a Latino parent in the Lawrence community. I am a parent of an amazing 8-year-old boy. His name is Ozias. Ozias has autism. He's right there. Ozias has autism, and he is mainly a nonverbal communicator. He is currently receiving special education services while in school. As a parent, our goals is to ensure that our child is safe, understood, and in the right placement. And for me, that was to have my son in an inclusive setting. Ozias and I have dealt with many obstacles in regards of getting him the education that he needs and deserves. In one of his previous schools, my son was placed in a timeout room. In case you guys don't know, this is a room where students are placed alone with adult supervision outside of the room as a form of punishment, and when a child seems dysregulated, they're placed in this room. Do you want to know why my son was in there? For simply touching a student on their shoulder. When this matter was brought up to my attention, I immediately thought, well, this was my son's way of communicating. So I expressed my concern to the team. And you know what happened? They became defensive, cold, not only towards me, but to my son. Soon after, I started to notice that my son's behavior was increasing. He was refusing to go to school. He was crying, kicking, wasn't happy to go to school. So that's when I noticed that my son's personality and his light was dimmed, and I needed to seek support outside of the school district. As his mother, I knew that something bad was gonna happen, and unfortunately, my son was not gonna be able to communicate that with me. As I stated, he's nonverbal. However, since switching schools, my son has bloomed. He's practiced speech, peer interactions, working on social skills, and most importantly, my son is in a classroom setting, and he feels welcomed where he can explore new challenges since being in an inclusive setting. I always felt that in previous schools, they just didn't want to hear me out or validate any concerns, me being his mother. But with time, education, and support, I was able to get my son in an inclusive setting. What I have to say is that as a parent, we need to know that we have options to fight for your child and that you are not alone and that you are not the only family who's dealing with these circumstances, if not maybe worse. that if you have a questions during this IEP meeting, that is okay to ask questions if you feel lost. It is okay to not agree with what the teachers or administrators are saying, because I believe that us parents know our child more. And with that being said, you need to advocate for your child because you are their only voice. Thank you.
So she's going to be speaking in Spanish, and I will be interpreting what she's going to say.
Buenas noches, gracias por tenernos aquí y escuchar nuestras preguntas, todos, como padres estamos muy preocupados con el problema de la comunidad y solo buscamos apoyo y que nos escuchen.
Good afternoon, and thank you for listening to our concerns and to our questions. And as a community, we're just very concerned for our students' education, so thank you for having us.
Okay. Mi nombre es Mariel Batista. Mi hijo se llama Sean. Está en 8º grado y tiene 14 años.
My name is Maria Batista. My son's name is Sean. He's in 4th grade. 8th grade, sorry, and he's 14 years old.
Mi niño es como cualquier otro niño. Es curioso y tiene deseos de tener amigos y triunfar.
My son is just like any other child. He's curious and he has the desire to succeed.
Le gusta jugar videojuegos, jugar baloncesto y quiere ser un jugador de baloncesto universitario.
He likes to play video games, he likes to play basketball, and he would like to be in the basketball in university.
También tiene TDAH y problemas de aprendizaje, por lo que necesita ayuda adicional y se supone que la escuela se lo ofrezca.
He also has ADHD and learning disabilities, which he will need additional support, which we assume that the school needs to provide that.
Cuando Sean estaba en el 2º grado, la escuela le dio un plan 504 que no fue suficiente para lo que él necesitaba.
When Sean was in 2nd grade, the school provided him with a 504 plan that was not enough for what he needed.
Estaba teniendo problemas con algunos de sus otros amigos porque estaba aprendiendo a tener habilidades sociales y estaba aprendiendo a controlar sus emociones.
He was having trouble with some of his peers because he was learning to use his social skills and control his emotions.
Seguí pidiendo otras evaluaciones y un IEP, pero seguían diciéndome que no.
I continued asking for other evaluations and an IEP, but they continued to say no.
Esto incluso después que un psicólogo independiente lo diagnosticara con discapacidad de aprendizaje y TDAH.
And this was inclusively after a psychologist diagnosed him with a learning disability and ADHD.
No me enteré de estos problemas hasta que fue demasiado tarde para hacer algo y el año escolar ya se había perdido.
I didn't know about these issues until it was too late within the school year and the school year had ended.
Sean seguía teniendo dificultades para concentrarse y luego se frustraba y no sabía cómo expresar que no entendía.
Sean continued having difficulties to concentrate and to express himself, and he continued to get frustrated because he wasn't able to.
Se enojaba, se levantaba y jugaba con otros amigos en vez de concentrarse en su clase.
He would get angry and upset and focus on interacting with his friends instead of focusing in class.
La escuela simplemente dice que es comportamiento y sin tratar de entender por qué se estaba comportando de esta manera.
The school just said that it was a behavior issue without trying to understand why he was behaving this way.
Tuvimos muchas reuniones.
We had many meetings.
Sentí que el personal estaba frustrado conmigo o molesto porque yo ya había dicho que no podía tener un IEP.
I felt like the staff was frustrated or upset at me because they had already said that he wasn't able to have an IEP.
y que seguíamos hablando de las mismas cosas una y otra vez.
We continued to speak about the same things over and over again.
Pero yo sentía que no se estaba haciendo lo suficiente para ayudar a mi hijo.
But I felt that enough wasn't being done to help my son.
Estando en 6º grado en la escuela Bruce, una amiga de la comunidad me sugiere que me comunicara con Mac.
When he was in 6th grade at the Bruce School, a friend of the community suggested that I should contact Mac.
En la primera reunión con la abogada de Mac, sentí más respeto porque tenía un equipo conmigo que me estaba respaldando.
In the first meeting with the Mac staff, I felt more supported because I felt like a team was there to support me.
Me enteré por uno de los profesores en la reunión que Sean había estado fuera de clases por 3 semanas.
I found out by one of the teachers that Sean had been out of school for 3 weeks.
Esta fue la primera vez que escuché esto y no lo podía creer.
This was the first time I heard about this and I couldn't believe it.
¿Por qué no me llaman? ¿Por qué esperan que las cosas se pongan tan difíciles para poder resolver algo?
Why don't they call me? Why do they wait for this to become more difficult in order to get a resolution?
Lo más preocupante de todo es el niño.
The most concerning of all is the child.
Con los documentos y las pruebas, finalmente se obtuvo el IEP en la reunión, pero mi lucha no terminó ahí.
With all the evidence and documents, finally he had an IEP, but the issue did not end there.
Mi niño comenzó a tener problemas de bullying en la escuela.
My son started having issues with bullying at school.
La psicóloga independiente que pude conseguir por vía de Mac
The independent psychologist that I was able to obtain through Mac
presenció una situación de bullying con mi hijo en la escuela.
observed a bullying situation with my son at school.
Y la escuela no hizo nada por esto.
And the school did nothing about this.
No le dio la importancia adecuada.
They didn't provide the appropriate importance.
En el verano, mientras mi hijo regresaba a casa de la escuela, fue atacado por 4 niños que rompieron su teléfono y lo golpearon.
In the summer, as my son was walking home from school, he was attacked by 4 children, which broke his phone and hit him.
Sentí que mi única opción era acudir a la policía.
I felt like my only option was to go to the police,
Lo hice.
and so I did.
Después de pasar por todo el proceso de corte,
After going through the whole court process,
tuve que permitir que mi hijo vaya a la escuela con los mismos niños que lo golpearon.
I had to allow my son to go back to school with the same children that attacked him.
Un gran problema ahora es que, aunque mi hijo tenga el IEP y ya sabemos lo que necesita,
A big concern right now, or a big issue right now, is that even though my son has an IEP and we know what he needs,
no recibe los servicios que él realmente necesita para cubrir sus necesidades.
he doesn't receive the services that he needs in order to cover his needs.
Tuve una reunión del equipo este año y me enteré que el horario de mi hijo no incluía el apoyo adicional que él necesita.
I had a meeting with the team this year, and I found out that my son doesn't have the support, the additional support that he was supposed to have.
Entonces no entiendo, aún con un diagnóstico y un IEP, me ha dado tanto trabajo para que la escuela, asegurarme que la escuela cumpla con las necesidades que mi hijo necesita.
So I don't understand, even though my son has a diagnosis and an IEP, why it's so difficult for my son to receive the services that he needs in school.
Es responsabilidad de la escuela y la escuela es la base del futuro de nuestros niños.
It's the school responsibility, and the school is the foundation for our son's learning.
Pero cuando el joven está atrasado y no llega a su meta, es como si no importara.
But when he is delayed in his goal, he doesn't reach his goal, it's like it doesn't matter, or they don't care.
Necesitamos que nuestros hijos sean unos profesionales con calidad. No podemos criar a nuestros hijos al libre albedrío.
We need our children to be qualified professionals. We can't just let them be free.
Necesitamos su apoyo y nuestros hijos que son especiales necesitan más apoyo de lo normal. Y estamos aquí para que ustedes nos usen para ayudar a nuestros hijos.
We need your support, and our children, especially the ones with special needs, need more support than what is offered. So we are here for you to use us in order to assist with that.
Gracias. Buenas noches.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jarita Rizzo, and my son Alejandro is 18 years old, and that is him on the picture. He is currently in the first year of the postgraduate program at LHS. During the last 6 years, he received his education through the ILP program. Our advocacy began at the age of 2 when he was diagnosed with autism. Alejandro was and continues to be mostly nonverbal. He enrolled in LPS at age 3. Tonight, I will share with you our journey and how it has impacted our son's education. Our first experience was when we were requesting 3 speech therapy sessions per request of his neurologist, and the ETF at his IEP meeting told us the district usually provides a maximum of 2 speech therapy sessions to students, which to me was an indication that the services are not individualized to the student's need, but based on the district's wants and needs. When he entered kindergarten after 2 years of pre-K in an inclusive classroom, he was placed in a substantially separated room. We did not understand why the district made this radical change because we were never informed of any difficulties on his part in the inclusion room. We advocated, but we were told that he could not tolerate that placement. From then on, Alejandro was at the SES Annex until grade 7. I did not know at the time that under requirements of special education law, the district should have provided more inclusive options. In 2017, in response in part to advocacy efforts conducted by families, LPS began a pilot inclusion program with SES Annex students at Gilmet Middle School, where he completed middle school and graduated from 8th grade. The journey has not been easy, and our advocacy has been constant. We had no choice at times but to obtain an attorney in order to make sure our son received the support and services he needed to succeed. The attorney assisted us with making sure that our concerns and wants for our son were being heard at IEP meetings, and that Alejandro had access to grade level content and modified so he can learn among his peers. Today, we are celebrating all his achievements during this school years, including the following. During grades 7th and 8th, Alejandro participated in plays, Christmas shows, with the support of a paraprofessional that stayed with him after school so he can learn the songs, dances, and practices, giving him opportunities to work on his social skills and developing a relationship with neurotypical students. At the high school, Alejandro continued to participate in the dance program, but did not have a paraprofessional that would stay with him during the evening shows, and I had to be his one-on-one in order for him to participate. During grade 10, with the pandemic, I was his teacher at home and learned to modify his work. This gave me the opportunity to get to know him as a student and learned of his educational abilities and potential. During his last 2 years at LHS, Alejandro received so much support from his special education teacher and his one-to-one in a general education setting, which allowed him to demonstrate his educational abilities. And he exceeded everybody's expectations. He even passed the math MCAS his senior year. Inclusion has not only been a big benefit for my son, but also to his neurotypical peers who have taken an interest in autism and wrote research papers to learn more about it. Because they know and learned with Alejandro, they are more compassionate towards students who learn in a different way. Currently, at the postgraduate program, we face new challenges. When it comes to internship and employment options, the options are limited for disabled students, although the high school campus offers many choices for neurotypical students. And our disabled students attend internships in groups, which limit even more the possibility of Alejandro and other students being paired with an employer based on their interests and abilities. Too many families are unaware of their child's educational rights and don't have access to an attorney like I did. I worry about other children who are still in placements that are not offering opportunities for them to thrive and reach their potential. We need to work together to make our program successful and hold high expectations. Our students with disabilities are all capable. They just need the opportunity to demonstrate their potential. I am hopeful knowing that the current administration is committed to making necessary changes. Thank you for allowing me to share my son's story.
Thank you. So each of the students discussed today have benefited from the strength, incredible strength and perseverance of their incredible parents. And even with that, they have needed legal representation at certain points in the process. We know that the LAE, the CPAC, and all of us are concerned about how to make reforms so that all students with disabilities have access to the services that they need. And, you know, importantly, discussing the superintendent search, it would seem crucial to identify a candidate who really understands how to address the needs of students with disabilities in inclusive ways and equitable ways. So MAC also remains committed to not just advocate, but to partner with the LAE and the administration to provide equitable, inclusive options for students with disabilities. So open it to questions for me or for any of the families. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Any questions? Maria?
I don't have a question. Thank you so much. That was a very powerful presentation, and your children are very fortunate to have you as advocates, and I'm very grateful that you are part of our school and are, you know, advocating for more services for them. I was especially touched, well, I was equally touched by all the statements, but it's good to hear that our students can learn, you know, like neurotypical students can learn a lot from sharing classrooms with different students, and you know, we need more of that.
Okay, thank you.
I want to thank the parents. Oh, Mayor, go ahead.
Parents, it's very important, you know, when you have it, any challenge, you have a city council in your district, you have a city mayor. Not only, you know, another thing is not easy. I have a special daughter. She's graduated to the high school, and I know it's not easy, you know, because but it's special. God provide special people and a special family, you know. But when you have any question, the city mayor is open for any question, any support. I understand very clear your frustration sometimes, but it's very important you present tonight what your preoccupation, your challenge about any situation is different. Different parents have a different situation, you know. But I understand very clear because I have my special daughter. Well, it's a beautiful daughter. It's my beautiful. It's my angel, you know. And anything you need, looking for support, not only in the school department, but I know the school department have a many opportunity for special kid, because my daughter graduated to the high school. When I have a question and I have any situation, I'm looking for support and I can find them, believe me. But if you try open one door, it's closed, knocking another door, no open. Thank you and God bless.
Any further questions? Warner? I want to thank you, Diana, for coming tonight, and to the parents, thank you for sharing your story with us. We appreciate that. Thank you so much.
No, thank you all. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you, Mayor, for that. That was I felt the connection, because it is very important for us to make sure that our children are being well situated and taken care of. Thank you, I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, I'd like to turn the meeting over to the superintendent.
Thank you very much, Chair Mariano. We're going to move on to our district updates, and we do have a significant number of items tonight as well. So if we can pull up the district's update slide deck, and we will get started right away. Thank you, Dave. A lot of recent updates, exciting things happening within the school department. Just took some pictures at West Side Story. Also have some tar box students at Mary Immaculate underneath there. We have some Gilmet Middle School students who are inducted into the Junior National Honor Society, and then the topping off ceremony over at the Arlington School. You can go to the next slide, Dave. So recently we had 4th and 5th grade students at the Tarbox School going and visiting Mary Immaculate. The Tarbox Student Leaders and Honor Choir were able to sing holiday songs to the residents over there, and also completed arts and crafts projects with the residents over at Mary Immaculate. Next slide, Dave. Oliver topping off ceremony, something that I was not very familiar with, had no idea what a topping off ceremony was, but we celebrated the last piece of steel officially being placed in the structure at the Oliver School building site. The topping off ceremony was attended by Oliver Elementary students, Oliver Middle School students, Principals Quiles and Demil, as well as many members of the community and project management. We have a nice picture there of the mayor and Chair Mariano, as well as Council President LaPlante, Senator Payano in the background, Leader Moran, as well as Representative Reyes and Representative Paulino, Councilor Del Rosario, Councilor Russell was also there. Many other folks from around the community attended the topping off ceremony. It was a little bit chilly, but it was a very nice event, and we are looking forward to the Oliver School project being completed in June of 2025. Next slide, Dave. We had an excellent event last week at the Arlington School, the Lawrence Family Institute for Student Success. Families there, in conjunction with the Family Resource Center, completed their fall 2023 session there. 92 parents received their certificates for completing the program in a place very near and dear to my heart. As many of you know, I started my career in Lawrence at the Arlington School. I was very happy to see many of my former students there who are now grown and have children of their own. Right in the middle, you see Alberis de la Cruz, who was one of my students back in the mid-2000s, and she was attending there with her son as the parents who presented here tonight. They're learning skills to be able to advocate for their kids, to make sure that their kids get the best education possible. LPS Honor Choir repped it up across from City Hall at the City of Lawrence tree lighting several weeks ago. They were able to get on stage and sing holiday carols, and that they had the privilege to be able to witness the actual tree lighting as we counted down and lit the tree for the holidays. So that was an exciting event. Next slide, Dave. Going back again to the National Junior Honor Society event at the Super G, 22 new members were inducted into the National Honor Society chapter over at the Gilmet Middle School. We want to congratulate all those students for their hard work. It was great. I was up on stage with Miss Cunningham, and I said, I recognize that young lady in the front row. And Miss Cunningham said, that's Nilmar. I'm like, I had her when I taught Acceleration Academy over at the Gilmet several years ago. So when I taught Acceleration Academy right prior to closure for COVID, In 2020, Nilmar was a student in my class, so it was good to see her doing so well academically, and she has great plans for high school as well. Next slide, please, Dave. Also, we're going to have a couple of guests come down and talk in a couple of minutes who were at the National Honor Society induction at Lawrence High School, but the LHS chapter of National Honor Society inducted 87 new members several weeks ago. We want to congratulate all the members for their commitment to academic excellence and also the 4 pillars of scholarship, service, leadership, and character that all inductees for National Honor Society must embody. So we got some good pictures there. Next slide. Also, LHS Theater, of course, rocked it several weeks ago. They did a great job with West Side Story. Wonderful, wonderful production. See David and Jimmy and Amos and everybody else on stage there. I think those are the Jets up on stage while they're singing during that section of West Side Story. They did a great job. You'll see the poster for Tarzan, which will be their next production, coming up in several months, but don't forget about it because it has been, it is, and will continue to be the best show in town, LHS Theater. And wanted specifically to congratulate Carolina, grade 9 at Abbott, and Devin, grade 12 in the upper school. They recently received recognition from the Massachusetts Educational Theater Guild. Next slide, Dave. On Thanksgiving Day, we enjoyed some time at Lawrence High School campus before heading back to our families to enjoy the day. We had a great day, great weather for football between Lawrence High School and Central Catholic. We had recognitions for seniors from the football program and also the cheer program, again, recognizing them for their commitments to teamwork and effort. We'll refer back to effort when we're talking about Pillar 3 in a couple minutes. I took a quick picture with Jeremiah, 12th grader from the upper school, who's a member of our football and wrestling squads. A young man who came to Lawrence from Kinshasa about a year and a half ago and has really done a great job in Lawrence High School in his short time there, telling me he's interested in studying biology next year when he is in college. Super game, we weren't able to come out on top. Central did edge us 17-14, but it was definitely a great event. Mr. Gorham and myself were there sitting with several graduates from Lawrence High School who are giving us trivia from 1980s from Lawrence High School. And just a quick update related to football. Our wonderful head coach, Randy Aldate, has recently informed us that he will not be back for next year as the head coach. So we are on the lookout for a new head coach for the Lawrence High School football program. So folks out there who are interested in coaching football, please pay attention for that posting. It will be coming out soon. In relation to sports, winter sports are in full swing. The season began on Monday, December 1st. We have 5 winter sports in action. And as always, you can find the sports schedule on our Lawrence High School website. Got a picture there from wrestling from last Saturday. We had Dominic Armano from Abbott Lawrence, grade 10, actually got our first pin of the year against Cumberland Regional. Did a great job. And then we had a snapshot last night as the Lancers came out on top against Cambridge Ring in Latin. We will have the most important sporting event in the history of Lawrence High School Friday night. Lady Lancers are playing North Andover High School in girls basketball. So if you do love Lawrence, if you do love sports, if you do love basketball, come out Friday night to support the Lady Lancers. And then the Commonwealth Classic will be happening at Merrimack College during winter break. 8 teams in both boys and girls basketball, high quality basketball. Lawrence will participate, of course. Right up the road at Merrimack College, a couple miles up the road, you can see some great basketball during break. Next slide, please, Dave. Squash Busters. We did visit the Squash Busters mash-up over at Brooks this past Sunday morning. And over the years, over 200 LPS middle and high school students have been in the Squash Busters program. And the program has, of course, they teach the kids how to play squash, but the overall focus is health, exercise, and academics. We took a picture with Andres from Squash Busters and also Jomar, who is from the Arlington School to Abbott Lawrence and currently a 12th grader, and he has participated in Squash Busters while at the Arlington and in his time at Lawrence High School, and he was talking to Andres and myself about his plans to study engineering next year in college. Did want to update the board on a few recent safety incidents that we had. We had recently had 2 safety-related incidents at or in close proximity to Lawrence High School. The first incident was related to a hoax, kind of like a swatting threat to our campus. We implemented our crisis plan to shelter within the building until the threat was determined to be non-credible by the Lawrence Police in conjunction with Homeland Security. We just have a quick snapshot of our PDF on what students are supposed to do when we do call for a shelter. within the building. In this case, we locked all the external doors and did not allow anybody else from outside to enter the building while we had implemented the crisis plan. Within the building, students did switch classes, did go to lunch back and forth. At about 1:30 that day, we did get clearance to resume normal operations. Our second related incident related to an assault in proximity to the campus last week. In this case, the crisis plan was not implemented because there was no threat to the school at this time. But in both situations, we did work closely with our law enforcement partners at the Lawrence Police to make sure that our staff and students in the community were safe. Next slide, Dave. I did want to refer to Pillar 3 of the LPS turnaround plan. We have been talking about various aspects of the turnaround plan at recent meetings. The Pillar 3 specifically talks about mindset and the believing in the value of hard work and having a growth mindset for all of our students. And while I'm introducing this, I would invite two of our students from Lawrence High School, Michelle Hannon and also Maya Salazar, down to the podium. Both of these students are inductees into the National Honor Society. Both are currently studying at Abbott Lawrence. Both have several things going on inside and outside of the classroom. And in a minute, I'm just going to turn it over to them for a minute so they can kind of talk about their own thoughts about mindset and the value of hard work and what growth means to them. But Pillar 3, again, refers to focusing on growth, right? Students growing from where they are and believing that hard work matters. Pillar 3 refers to students committing to effective effort. And that when students do produce effective effort, that's going to lead to gains in either attendance, academics, extracurricular, or social emotional skills. And we believe that what we do well because we have practiced and we have focused on it. And, you know, our core belief below Pillar 3 is that achievement doesn't happen just because you're smart, right? Achievement happens through deliberate actions. And in a minute, we'll talk about Indicator 5 in our school quality reviews, referring to high expectations for our students. But I did want to turn it over to my friends Michelle and Maya. Thank you very much, both of you, for coming, and both of them involved in things outside the classroom, inside the classroom, early college, theater. So at this time, I'll turn it over to you, Michelle and Maya, just to give your thoughts on what growth mindset means to you and what you see as the value of hard work and how that has helped you through your years in LPS.
Well, hi. So I'm Michelle. I'm a senior at Abbott Lawrence Academy at LHS. I'm on the governing board of National Honor Society. I'm student class president of the senior class. I'm the president of the Lawrence Asian Student Association, and I was just accepted to Wellesley College for early decision. So I definitely wouldn't have been where I am today without developing a growth mindset, and I think through my 12 years in Lawrence Public Schools, I really owe it to the staff for helping me develop that growth mindset. I remember in middle school, probably the most impactful teacher I've ever had in my entire life took me and a very small group of students to this accelerated program where he taught us like math and science and proper grammar structures and everything. And at the time it seemed silly because I was like a 7th grader and he was teaching us how to add and how to subtract and how to multiply. And I was like, this is stupid, Mr. Barry, why am I doing this? But now I'm taking calculus, AP calculus, my senior year, and I'm realizing that by going back to the fundamentals and making us truly curious about what we're learning, he instilled that growth mindset. Really, he unlocked that growth mindset in all of us, because I think that lies in every single student in Lawrence Public Schools, but it's really the teachers who give us the tools to uncover that growth mindset. And on top of that, I think what you were saying about how it's not just smartness, it's not just hard work. I think growth mindset is curiosity and genuine interest in studying and helping others and asking for help, having humility to ask for help. And so it's something that everybody has inside of them. And so if we all work together, we all promote this. It has to be a group mindset. And yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Maya Salazar. I go to Abbott Lawrence Academy at Lawrence High School. And currently, I'm part of the Lawrence Theater Program Theater Department. If any of you want to see West Side Story, I was Anita. I am vice president of my senior class at Abbott, and when I think of hard work, I think of how I embody hard work in everything I do, from being in the classroom to expressing hard work in my community or at home through volunteering. I find hard work in collaboration with my peers, making sure everybody has the option to be heard, and considering everybody when making decisions for the school. For example, as a governing member of the National Honor Society or in student government, it's important that you see things from different point of views, and I feel like hard work can embody many different aspects.
I just wanted to thank both of you for taking a few minutes to come down and talk to us about Pillar 3. It's wonderful to see both of you doing so well. I was wondering if the board did have any questions for you since you're here. I believe also Maya did have the experience also of presenting to the Massachusetts Board of Education about a year ago, right? I believe. So, you know, both of these students very experienced in public speaking, presentation. Hannah was one of our guides when we went to visit the early college program. So just would open it up to the board at this point if you had any specific questions for Maya or for Hannah.
I'm curious to know, what are you going to study at Wesley?
So I don't know, you know, the future holds many things. I'm interested in basically every single subject, but I intend on double majoring in chemistry and art history, and then I'm going to pursue a master's in education to teach back at LPS.
Awesome.
Wow.
How about you?
I also don't really know. I'm interested in psychology and anthropology, etiology. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Maria?
I truly hope you participate in the superintendent search survey, and hopefully you'll be able to attend the groups, because I think your feedback will be really valuable.
We would love to.
Yes, yes.
I want to thank you, ladies, for being the shining stars of LPS. We are very, very proud of you and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you again to Michelle and to Maya, and of course, Mr. Gorham, one of our unsung stars of LPS. You can check out the Unsung Stars of LPS on our LPS YouTube page. So the Difference Makers, excuse us. And also, Mr. Gorham is the voice of the Lancers. If you recognize his voice, probably because you've heard him at Lawrence High School during a football game. Just to provide a kind of a brief update on attendance, we do have the Family Resource Center here. I know last meeting when we were talking about attendance, we did get some questions from board members about, you know, why are some students not coming to school? What are things that we're working on? So I believe at this point we'll welcome our friends from the Family Resource Center. We have Marianela de la Cruz, who is a partnership director, and also Roberto Rios, who is one of our attendance officers, and several other folks. I think we have Edwin and Shakita and Tito here also as well to talk about attendance and how we help families get students to school when they are struggling with attendance. So Marianela, we'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Good evening, board members. Thank you all for having us here tonight. And as the superintendent said, my name is Marianela de la Cruz, and I'm one of the partnership directors for the district that oversees K through 8 attendance. And here we have our attendance team. Roberto Rios, who's the supervisor of attendance, district residency and attendance liaison, Shakira Enriquez and Juan Lluvieres, as well as our attendance officer at the high school, Edwin Morales. So supporting students' attendance. Students who attend school are more likely to succeed academically. Next slide, please. So the role of our district attendance officers and liaisons, we maintain an open communication with schools regarding chronic absenteeism, manage or support cases, which include but not limited to collaborating with local agencies to develop target interventions that address specific barriers. We help with locating and doing outreach to families to facilitate attendance meetings with schools and families to develop attendance success plans. We do investigation of cases, conducting home visits, initiating attendance panels in our courts, and other appropriate court actions, ensuring residency compliance. And we support schools in hosting attendance forums and/or information sessions for families. We also document interactions with families, students, schools, courts, and any other agencies in our Power School and tracking systems. And of course, the attendance officers also follow up with any CRAs, child requesting assistance referrals through the courts. Next slide, please. This is a little bit about policies, research, and data. LPS's goals for attendance are that 95% of attendance, missing no more than 9 days of school. Chronic absenteeism is missing 18 days or just 2 a month. Poor attendance can influence whether children can read proficiently. By 3rd grade, 6th grade, chronic absenteeism becomes a leading indicator that students will drop out of high school. A student who consistently misses 10 days or more during a school year is 20% less likely to graduate high school and 25% less likely to enroll in college. Absenteeism in the first month of school can predict poor attendance throughout the year. Half of the students who miss 2 to 4 days in September go on to miss nearly a month of school. As we know, learning begins on day 1 of the school year and continues all year long. Our percentage for a district as of date is 91.4%. Next slide, please. And these are our attendance metrics. As of December 1st, pre-K through 5th grade is 92%. Middle school, which includes 6th through 8th grade, is 92.2%. And our high school is at 88%. And again, our attendance as of December 1st is 91.4%. Now I'm going to pass it over to Roberto Rios, our supervisor of attendance.
Good afternoon to the board. My name is Roberto Rios. I'm one of 4 of the Lawrence attendance officers and residency liaisons. I'll be touching on some root causes, what's going on, what our students are saying, what our families are saying in regards to attendance. So we have children who suffer from chronic illnesses that prevents them from coming to school. That's one of the major barriers. We have children who are suffering from mental health issues, social, emotional, anxiety, depression, that they struggle with and prevents them from making it to class on a regular basis. We have families that are going through some difficult situations, hardship. We have immigrant families who are working 2 jobs, part-time jobs. We have students who are latchkey kids who get home and don't have a parent to receive them. We have students who have parents who leave early in the morning, and students are basically alone, and it's their responsibilities for them to get themselves to school. We have poverty, lack of health care. We have inadequate housing. That has to do with our homeless population, foster children, and just families that are going through financial hardship. We also have transportation challenges. This year has been kind of difficult in regards to transportation. The department has done an amazing job with the lack of resources that we have. We don't have sufficient drivers. We have drivers doing 2 routes, transporting kids who are homeless from different towns, who are in foster care or in shelters. So we also have aversions. So we have students who are presenting challenges academically and behavioral. We just heard about some amazing parents who were here giving testimonies about their children. And kids or students who are struggling in the classroom in regards to behavior for many reasons, right? We have some that have underlying disabilities, some that have what you call learning disabilities. Some suffer from anxiety and depression, the social, emotional, and so that prevents them from coming to school. So we have disengagement. We have kids who don't feel part of a community, students that don't feel part of a family, and get to school and they feel lost. Those students are really hard to bring back into the schools because they just don't feel that they belong. There's also misconceptions. We have, attendance is only a problem if it's excused. There's no such thing as an excuse absent. It's an informed absent. An absent is an absent. The child is not physically there to obtain instruction. And some families feel, as previous slides that they were talking about, missing 1 day a week, 2 days a month, and it adds up. And you have children who are missing significant amount of time of instruction in the classroom, and that affects them deeply. We have other factors as well. We have immigrant families, like I mentioned before, coming into Lawrence, and sometimes they don't value education the same way. We have some students who I speak to who their main priority is, how am I going to help my mom and my dad put food on the table? How am I going to help pay for utility bills or rent? And at such a young age, we're talking about 7th and 8th grade, they feel that burden, and they feel the need to help out and whatnot. So again, lack of supervision for students who either walk themselves to school, who arrive to a home with no parents, or who have to take the responsibility of just waking up in the morning, getting ready, helping their siblings, and getting to school. Next slide, please. So what's being conveyed to families? Attendance from the first day of school matters. Every day matters. They should be in school on a daily basis, right? Every time a child is not in school, they're missing important information. They're missing instruction. And if you're not physically there, you're going to fall behind. We have students that are being impacted because of extended vacations that, culturally, we want to see our families back in the island, whether it be Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Central America, South America. But we understand that the price for tickets during that specific week is very pricey, super costly. So we have families who leave a week before, come back a week after, and again, these students are missing instruction, and it's going to be almost impossible for them to make up the work. It's not the same as you sitting in a classroom receiving instruction from a certified teacher, but you're in the island with a whole bunch of distractions, and you're trying to do read or some sort of paper or whatnot just to try and catch up. So these things are really impactful and are really hurting our attendance. And we have the admins, counselors, and ourselves just having conversations with our parents of how important it is for the students to be in school on a daily basis. I already touched on the extended vacations. So schools don't have the capacity to help students that are not there. Once again, it's not sufficient that you give them a pamphlet or you give them some information for them to do by themselves. We have teachers for a reason, and I believe the best way of learning, it's in the classroom, because we all saw it during COVID. Our students struggled. So we don't want our students to fall behind. Like I said, they miss on labs, on special events, guest speakers, sports, all kinds of activities that we provide within the school setting. So we also have parents who struggled with students who are chronically ill. So we have conversations with them in regards to best practice. If you could schedule an appointment in the weekends, that'll be great. If you could do it in the afternoon so that the child goes in the morning and gets dismissed, that's also best practice. Or if you can't get one of those in the afternoon, first appointment available so that they could take them to the appointment, and then after that they head to the classroom and they don't miss a day. we all live in New England, right? The weather's cold. So we have some days that are extremely cold. We've had the opportunities to provide our students with the necessary attire so that, hats, mittens, gloves, and coats and whatnot. But we also struggle with some parents with the little kids so most of our students walk to school. So when the weather goes below zero, it's kind of challenging, especially if they're young ones. Sometimes in the summer, the weather gets extremely hot. It's been known that if it's too cold or too hot, school is canceled, including snow days. But there are those days that it's cold and it's too hot, and some parents don't want to send their kids to school. We have conversations with parents around that general area, and we're always preaching that best practices for them to go to school. Plus, we have Katie's Closets in most of our schools, and we also have amazing teachers who donate coats and gloves and whatnot, so that it's a lot easier on the kids who have to walk and don't have transportation. Next slide, please. So what are the schools doing? Schools are, we're trying to strategize, we're trying to do the best that we can with the lack of resources that we have. We have family engagement at the FRC. Some of the schools also have family engagement teams, so that we're able to connect the families with the schools. One of the strategies that we use is that we have attendance meetings with some of the schools. Some schools meet once a week, sometimes twice a month, but we always try to have these meetings so that we could do some outreach and get in front of the situations. Some of these meetings, you'll have principals, you'll have assistant principals, counselors, you'll have parent liaisons, you have the attendance officers or their team, and we just gather and try to do small investigations to see how we can provide support and help these families out, because this is basically what we're all about, right? Some of the schools have adopted comprehensive approach to improving attendance. Some of the teachers, some of the admins get really creative. They have like pizza parties for a classroom who has perfect attendance, incentives for students who are struggling. They might get certain points or so they could go to the school stores and buy some stuff. That really helps out with the students in our population. So we have strategies that have been implemented from pre-K, and basically they are called an agreement with a family. Basically, I call them conditions because that's the language that we use at court, but some other schools, they call them contracts. But it's just basically an agreement to hold the parent, the student, and ourselves accountable. I believe that if the parents and the students and the schools are not working together, are not on the same page, we're not really going to go far. We're not going to be really we're not going to be able to solve the situations because everybody needs to be part of the solution, right? We have schools that manage early interventions. Every school is different. But if a child has missed a certain amount of days, we have our schools calling, sending out automated messages. We send emails, letters. We at times do home visits as well. And sometimes we bring the parents in to the school so we could have a conversation to see what is impeding the child from coming to school on a regular basis. So students, at the beginning of the year, a lot of the schools are really proactive, and they provide our families with attendance policies, behavior policies or discipline policies, so they understand the rules and the importance of a child being in school on a regular basis. With that, we also have, zero tolerance for hazing or bullying. If a child discloses that a child is being picked on or bullied or whatnot, the schools have a specific person to do an investigation and get to the bottom of it and provide either mediation or safety plans for our students so that they feel safe coming to school, as well as the parents feeling safe to bring or send students to the school.
Roberto, I just did want to ask you about, resources. Several years ago, I know that there was only 2 folks in the district who worked on attendance. And I believe we're up to 5 total, and we have 1 at the high school, which we never had before, as well as 4 other people at the district level. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. So I've been here, working for the district for about 14 years, and I was working, doing this alone for 12 years. Now we have a team of 4. It's a lot. The work becomes a lot easier, and you're able to be proactive and get in front of some situations instead of reacting to situations.
Absolutely. It's something that you need resources to address. So, the district has committed to that. I did want to open it up to board members who had any questions from the attendance team, but we did want to follow up with the request for kind of root causes of why folks are missing school.
Roberto, I have one question for you. The pre-K attendance agreement, what does that involve? What are you telling the parents in that agreement, or what are they agreeing to?
So in pre-K, we have students that depend on their parents. They 100% depend on a parent being there, providing the basic needs, whether it's providing transportation or walking them to school. So what we try to do is try to work a contract or an agreement and hold everybody accountable. Whether it'll be finding a neighbor to walk the child to school. If they could afford transportation, private transportation, then a list is provided to them. Just in general, for the preschools, it's very difficult because it's a combination of both. We're not talking about a high school student who's able to, already independent and has the skills to defend for themselves, walk to school and whatnot. So we have to get really creative with the parents. Every case is held on an individual basis because every case is different. And even though you have siblings, every child is different and has different needs.
Now, how is that being received? Do you have any data that indicates that this is working?
We don't have data right now. As I mentioned before, I was working alone. Now we have a team. So I'm curious to see in the future how working together and being more proactive with our families is definitely going to increase our attendance. But more or less having difficult conversations with our parents and emphasizing the importance of being in school and that every day matters is probably the most important thing. It's just relaying the information out there.
I think too we'll have good mid-year data on the pre-K students and end-of-year data as well to compare to how we did last year. I'm sure some of it is just going to be natural evolution. The further we get from COVID, the better our attendance get. But some of it is also going to be related to the parents' sessions that they're doing at the schools. I believe that one was at the Arlington School, correct, Roberto?
Yes,
so I think that the parent outreach plus the new policies plus the increased personnel in that department, I think are all going to be contributing factors to why our attendance is
We have done some presentations for the elementary schools, pre-K to like 5th. Again, preaching the importance of attending school on a regular basis. Attendance matters. We do it both in Spanish and English. We provide parents with information in a general basis, but we also have one-on-one conversations in a more intimate way.
Any other questions from the board? Maria? Oh, I'm sorry. Dolores.
What would be the intervention if a child starts to no show up? I mean, do you go to to the family? How does that work?
So the intervention starts at school, right? They're responsible for reaching out to the parents. Like I said before, we send letters, we send texts, emails, but sometimes the school would have to go and do a home visit to figure out exactly what the family dynamics are. All that being with all that happening and still attendance is an ongoing issue, we do sort of work on a referral basis. They'll make a referral to us. We'll sit down with the school to see what measures have been taken, what steps have been taken, what have we missed as the school. But we also have a conversation with the student. We also have a conversation with the parents. If the parents can come to us, we'll go to them. So we do home visits wherever they feel comfortable to present again, it's basically support, help the parents understand the value of education. And those are some of the interventions that we do. We also have an attendance panel hearing that we do in court. It has a little more merit because it's held in court. And that's basically a panel in which the students, depending on the age, parent, whatever community agency the parents are working with, Department of Children and Services, probation, and myself, we come together, we meet, and we come up with a plan, what we call a contract, in which we hold everybody accountable: parents, child, student, students, and ourselves, as well as the schools.
I think, the initial intervention is at the school level. They're notifying families by text, via phone call, by email when students are absent. Also, they use their own communication system, whether it's Class Dojo, but at the teacher level. And then again, the students who are still struggling after those initial school interventions are referred to the FRC attendance team.
At what point do you take it to the next level, excuse me, to go home, let's say, to do a home visit? 3 absences, a week's absence,
That's a good question. Like I said, every case is different. So the schools, they do their own visits. Once we receive the referrals, then we do our own interventions. Like I said, we go to schools, we speak to the child individually. Sometimes we have a meeting in which the schools, the parents, and the child are there. But it could be at any time after a certain number of absences. Like I mentioned before, every child wants to be successful, right? But there's sometimes something impeding them from attending school on a regular basis. And we just have to figure that out. And that's our job. And once we do and we put the resources in place, we tend to see some improvement. Unfortunately, sometimes, our resources are limited, especially for our children who are going through mental health issues and social emotional. We'll make referrals, but, the waiting list is like 6 to 8 months. So this is where the schools and us as a team, we get creative to support in whichever way we can.
Maria?
Thank you, Superintendent, for listening to the concerns about attendance. This is an incredible response, and this wasn't a department before, and it feels like a department now, an amazing department.
Thank you.
I think the potential for impact is significant. This is the filter or the net where you can actually detect serious issues with families, with students that may not be detected in the classroom. So I'm hoping that there's open communication lines with the special education department for testing, and obviously with the school and with the Family Resource Center, because again, some of those families are in dire need of help, and they just don't know how to express it other than just not sending the kid to school. Like, it's key, and it's going to be critical. So thank you for existing, and I hope that, I'm glad there's a department now on this.
It's a tough job because, we want to support families in getting their kids to school without embarrassing them or thinking that we're demeaning them or saying that they're bad families or bad parents. And it's a tough job. You have to get out there. You have to do home visits. You have to meet people where they are. Sometimes you have to go to court. So it really is a tough job. It takes a special type of individual to be able to do this work. So we appreciate everybody in FRC, Roberto, Angie, who's done the work, and previously Anna, Shakira, Tito, Edwin, all the folks who are working on attendance, as well as the people at the school level, the family engagement specialists. So we appreciate FRC coming down tonight for this presentation, and we look forward to maybe inviting them back in the springtime, maybe specifically to talk about the pre-K. We'll talk about the pre-K because it all starts early childhood, right? And if we can intervene and get good attendance in early childhood, that will help us down the line. So thank you very much. Thank you,
so much.
Marinella. Thank you,
Thank
Alvaro.
you.
Thank you,
Have a good
Shakira.
evening.
Thank you, Edwin, and thank you, Tito. A small item before we move on, as we do still have some significant presentations yet to go, and we're 2 hours in. We did want to ask the board to take a vote to approve accepting a $50 donation. Although it's a small amount, we did want to follow procedure to make sure that we are getting a board vote to accept this $50 donation to Lawrence High School from the Bilio family to put in our general operating account for the high school. So we're looking for a motion to approve this donation from the Bilio family to Lawrence High School.
May I have a motion to approve this donation to Lawrence High School?
So move.
Second?
Second?
Maria, please call the roll.
Dr. Dolores Calaf,
Yes.
Edgar de Leon,
I don't think he's on.
Arlene Garcia,
Yes.
Juana Matias, Maria Muller,
Yes.
Mayor Bryan left, and Patricia Mariano.
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you very much, and again, we do thank the Bilio family for thinking of Lawrence High School and sending us that donation. At this time, we're going to welcome our Chief Financial Officer, Ariel Perez, for a very quick update on budget priorities. But we did want to get back to you so you can give you a quick update on where we are year-to-date, and also show off the dashboard a little bit that we are using to track our spending.
Good evening, board members. Thanks for having me. As they pull that up, I just want to say thank you for being here, and I'm really filled with humility to be serving in this role for the LPS community, a community very similar to my upbringing, so this work really means a lot, and it's been a pleasure of mine to work side the leadership team here at LPS and serve this community. I won't take too much of your time with the numbers and managing the financials, but I wanted to present to you just a mid-year update and really a high-level overview of FY24 budgets versus actuals. This data is as of 12/8, which is last week, and then I'll talk a little bit about looking ahead as we wrap up FY24 in good financial health. Next slide. So I believe the Superintendent Rodriguez presented this dashboard last board meeting while I was over at City Council, but this is really a tribute to the partnership that we have with DESE and Open Architects, really showing a high-level financial picture of where LPS is and where it hasn't been in the previous fiscal years. So historically, we haven't met net school spending, unfortunately, just given the moving targets, different inefficiencies that needed to be eliminated. And we're working very diligently with our teams, accounts payable, superintendent, schools, different departments as well to really move forward in this goal of meeting net school spending and 100% spent by end of fiscal year 24. So this dashboard really looks at closely monitoring the budget and the spending and gaining really financial visibility at all times. As we look at here, we're approaching 40% year-to-date spent with 77% budget committed year-to-date. So we have about 23% throughout the remaining of the fiscal year to really close the gap there and meet and be at 100% budget committed. In Q1, we really presented to schools and departments of meeting the Q1 and Q2 target goal of 50% spent by 12/31, which is the end of Q2. And I think we're right on target, thankfully. It's been a lot of work. Obviously, this is my first time presenting to you guys, so if I haven't, it's because I've been working hard with the team, and it's a testament to all the work that the schools have also been doing, so thank you to the teachers and principals. We've been doing a really thorough assessment of progress in terms of meeting this 50% goal, just through frequent check-ins with principals, I've been doing like weekly school visits with the superintendent as well. So again, as I started, really filled with humility to be serving in this role, and just looking at the kids, being happy at schools, teachers being engaged, hearing out these parents earlier. It's really a success story of a community, and I think that, just going forward and looking ahead, we're only going to be in better shape. So really success to the superintendent search. If you have any questions, more than happy to answer. If I don't have an answer, then I'll get back to you as well.
Yeah, if there's any questions that you wanted further information for, we can definitely produce that at future meetings as well.
Any questions? Well, seeing as the budget season is quickly approaching, I'd like to announce the budget subcommittee from the LAE. And that subcommittee will be made up of Edgar De Leon, Dolores Calaf, and Arlene Garcia. And I want to thank these board members for offering their time to work with you on the budget.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ariel. We appreciate your time as well. At this time, we're excited to introduce Glenny Sanchez, who has recently joined the district as our Executive Director for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging in the Lawrence Public Schools. And she has a quick slide deck here just to introduce herself to you if you don't know her. Many of us do already know her previous to her joining LPS. And just some initial findings and what her initial work has looked like. So, Glenny, thank you very much for being with us tonight, and take it away.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone, members of the board. My name is Glenny Sanchez, and as Superintendent Rodriguez mentioned, I recently joined the district as his first Executive Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. And as a community member, as a parent of 2 children in Lawrence Public Schools, I'm very fortunate to be leading very important work here in the district and bringing different hats into this work. So if you can go to the next slide, please. I'm here tonight just to share some of the priorities that will be shaping the work ahead for me. So these are not the only priorities or work that we need to do under the umbrella of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So take these sort of as entry points into the work that build on the work that has been done before, and that is also centered on what our community, our families, our students, our educators need. So I've been here for 5-6 weeks now. So I'll start with the first priority, which is building relationships and dialogue in as many venues as possible to be in communication with students, with families, with educators, administrators, with community partners, and everyone involved in the success of our students. So that is the foundation of a lot of the other priorities that I will share tonight, and that will continue to be one of my priorities as I embark in this journey. The second priority and the third you will see are highlighted in a little darker because I will be spending a little bit more time tonight sharing how I'm shaping those, is really planning and designing the professional learning journey under diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and how I'm approaching the equity coaching and partnerships that we need. Priority number 3, it's a very important work around diversifying our educator workforce and having educators that look like the children of our community who understand our community. And number 4 is reconvening the anti-racist committee. So we have had a anti-racist committee that have been working for the past 3 years, and right before this meeting, we reconvened again. And I'm very excited to be working with that body of, with that committee to be my partners in this work as well. If you can go to the next slide. So the professional...
I'm sorry, could I stop you for a moment?
Sure.
What is the composition of the anti-racist committee? Is it made up of parents and community members, or is it just district people?
It's a combination of administrator, educators, families, students. So it's a representation of different stakeholders. That's how the committee was designed to be, sort of a coalition of different stakeholders. Right now, I am working, one of my priorities is to make sure that the voices of and membership of that committee is well represented. But it's a multi-stakeholder committee.
Thank you.
So back to the professional learning, when you think about what this professional development will look like, there could be a number of things that go under this huge umbrella of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So the focus, based on the data, based on focus groups that we have led in the past, and also in alignment with the district priorities, our focus for professional development will be on culturally responsive leadership and practice. It's an umbrella of work that has a lot of evidence to why our community needs that. And to make it ours, that professional learning will consider a few things. That professional learning arc will include multiple touch points. So taking a coaching approach, that it's a journey that we're embarking on and not one-off opportunities of professional development. Culture responsive leadership and practice is also rooted in research and data, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And my responsibility is to make sure that that professional development is rooted in Lawrence and is rooted in our community in a way that works for us, and that we build on the existing structures that we already have. And along the way, this is not just professional development, this is also capacity building for our families, for our students, for our paraprofessionals, and all educators. And when I say educators, I mean it in the most expansive ways. Everyone that's in a school building, when I think of educators, our paraprofessionals play a vital role in this work, counselors, so all the staff in a school, when I think about educators, I'm also including them. If you can go to the next slide. So just to give you a sense of the timeline, so we'll start in the spring with some sprint sessions with school leaders on culture responsive leadership and practice. And then for the next school year, this is a 1.5-year approach. We will continue professional development in year-long learning and leading communities, and also tap into the resources that our community have. So involving educators and school leaders, and maybe some of the community work and some assets that our community already has. And lastly, if you can go to the next slide, the piece around diversifying our educator workforce, we know that the research is very clear that diversifying the educator workforce is a vital piece of any educational equity work. So in my role, I will continue to sustain and establish partnerships to build sustainable growing your own approaches. We will continue to do work around mitigating financial barriers to obtaining degrees and completing certification process. And also my work will involve co-creating a strategic plan to make sure that we recruit, that we hire, retain, and also sustain educators of color. So those are the things that are on my radar. I'm sure that I will be coming back to you at some point with some reports and follow up, but I wanted to share what my priorities are and also take any questions that you may have for me tonight.
Thank you, Glenise. Any questions from the board?
Are we working with a specific contractor on this, like an outside consultant that's doing the training?
So yeah, we will be engaging with outside support and expertise on this. So my role is more of a curator of resources in developing and planning, co-planning this professional development, but just in line with the way we're designing other professional development work, we will work with the best and brightest in this work, and we will bring them to work with me to, I think the student said today, one of the students that she got from teachers the tools that she needed, so my job is to get school leaders and everyone else the tools that they need.
Thank you.
Dolores?
Yes, as I'm listening to your presentation, Glennie, comes to my mind the possibility of doing a community asset mapping. And I don't know if you have done that, but I think it would help to have in one place all these different organizations, agencies that could make an impact in terms of role modeling, different things for students, for staff, for teachers, administrators, etc. And I'm open to assist in any way I can.
Thank you, Dolores, for the recommendation. And as an update, my work is also finding internal partnerships with other folks. So the Family Resource Center we've been working on something very similar. Culture responsive practice is all about asset-based and really seeing the best that our community has. And in many ways, we're very, very resource-rich. So thanks for that comment, Dolores.
Any further questions? I think we're all set. Thank you, Glenise.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Glenise, and as we said, we're so excited that she joined the district in this important work. We're going to turn it over to Office of Student Support Services for a teaching and learning update. And they have a very in-depth presentation, and I don't think we're going to be able to get through it all, as we do have an intervention update after this as well. So we'll leave it up to Student Support Services to get through whatever they think they can get through in 10 minutes, and maybe can come back to a future meeting. But we are excited to hear some updates from our folks in Student Support Services. So Marlena, we'll turn it over to you at this point.
All right, thank you so much. My name is Marlene Salgas, Special Education Director for Office of Student Support. I'm going to start us off. Next slide, please. With an overview of special education data at this point in time. As of 12/6, we have 2,655 students on IEPs in Lawrence. Percentage-wise, that puts us at 19.8%, which has increased slightly over the past 2 years, but we're still in line with the state average of 19%. Next slide, please. Here is a breakdown of the numbers with relation to our continuum of services. So we have full inclusion placements, partial inclusion, specialized programs, 2 therapeutic day schools, as well as students who are placed in out-of-district schools. Just generally, some trends of importance are that there has been an increase in the number of students being served in full inclusion as well as partial inclusion placements, which is reflective of our commitment to inclusive practices. As well, the specialized programs have increased, but that can be attributed to 2 factors. Several years ago, we created additional classrooms to meet the needs of our highest need students within lower grades, and those students have gotten older and required the next grade level of that classroom on the continuum. Also, you'll see that our out-of-district numbers have decreased, and due to the increased offerings that we have in district, we have been able to bring some of these students back in district, which is great. Next slide, please. This is a graph here of a breakdown of disability categories, just so you can see with the red arrows. There are some areas here I'd like to highlight. One area to start is specific learning disabilities. We have seen a decrease in the number of that category, which can be attributed to an aggressive push that the district has made to address literacy by way of the implementation of a universal dyslexia screener, as well as the implementation of evidence-based reading interventions such as Wilson. In addition, we have bolstered our multi-tiered systems of support and further enhanced opportunities for students to be educated within a co-taught setting. In 2019, we launched a co-taught pilot with 8 classrooms, and at this point in time, we're up to 88 classrooms which is really, really impressive. Another area here to note is we have seen a decrease in students who have been identified with social emotional disabilities, which is very interesting when you frame that in the context of our return to learning post-pandemic. These numbers reflect the efficacy of the district's investment through the Student Opportunity Act funding on initiatives related to the creation of an expansive menu of services around behavioral health and social emotional learning. There has been an increase in the categories of autism, communication, and developmental delay. We have seen an increase in referrals from early intervention, including students for whom were on a lengthy wait list for evaluations during the pandemic. And so they have since had testing completed, and those results have been shared with us, and they have qualified for services. We've also seen that developmental delay, while that has grown, the category of intellectual impairment has not. So what that means with developmental delay is by age 9, the district needs to determine a more specific area of disability and what that could be, and we've, as a result, seen an increase in autism and communication, which are all impacting students in the area of communication. Next slide, please. Can you rewind one, please? All right, as far as the data, just doing this review here, it has shown us that we are targeting the right priority areas. This tells us a story which helps inform our decision-making about how to allocate resources in an impactful way to provide the necessary supports for students in order to achieve at the highest level. Next slide, please. We have identified 4 special education priorities: the new IEP rollout, high-quality professional learning, reimagining inclusion, as well as multi-tiered systems of support and family engagement. My colleagues from the Office of Student Support will speak to each of these in greater detail. Thank you so much.
Good evening. I'm Caitlin Stouch. I am the Assistant Special Education Director, and I am here with Kimberly Kozak, the Director of Program and Professional Development. I am here to present the LPS rollout of the IEP Improvement Plan. After 20 plus years of Massachusetts using the same form, they've recently changed the form. We'll get into that a little bit later in the presentation on what that looks like and some of the specifics. But I want to first present to you what that looks like for staff training in our district. The Commonwealth recognized what a big undertaking this was, so they did allocate financial resources in the form of a grant, which we were just awarded recently. And that will help with the rollout and the planning. All districts are expected to adopt the new IEP by the 24-25 school year. Most of the LPS staff will be trained by Alan Bloom. He's an educational consultant that has worked in special education for over 45 years. The last 23 years, he's spent partnering with districts across the Commonwealth for special education eligibility, writing and revising IEPs and 504s. We wanted to make sure that most of the staff were able to be trained by Alan, so everyone was getting the same messaging across the board. Additionally, there's trainings by Tessie, and ultimately we're working towards a train-the-trainer model so that we can have highly trained staff going forward to continue this work in years to come. So if you take a look at the bottom there, this is just some examples. Our related service provider leads, which includes our occupational therapist, physical therapist, speech and language pathologists, BCBAs, they're going to be turnkeying to their teams. ETFs will be responsible for training some of the educational staff and working with the parents. And the Office of Student Support will continue to support the staff and parents in LPS. Next slide. As we go through these slides, you'll notice that the number of sessions per series varies, and it really has to do with the role of the personnel and their interaction with the IEP going forward. So the special education directors had 3 sessions with Alan Bloom, which went over the new IEP form and also the Bloom Method app. Additionally, they went to a one-day workshop from DESE. Our ETFs had a three-part series. One that was actually was today via Zoom, and it was recorded and will become one of our electronic resources that we can use for training in district going forward. They'll also be working over February vacation to prepare their own material to be able to present to staff and parents. We can go to the next slide. The related service providers, as I talked about before, will be turnkeying to their teams. So initially, they were given 2 training sessions. They came and they advocated and said we needed more. So we were able to look at the schedule and add 3 more sessions, so for a total of 15 hours. The related service providers are going to have 1 overview session with Alan, and then they will be having their leads turnkey during their role-alike meetings. Next slide. We met with the principals last week to present this same presentation so that we can really highlight the importance of the staff being trained in the different opportunities that are available within the district. They will also be able to have training with Alan Bloom. Special education teachers, we have a few different sessions for them to be able to attend to make sure that it fits into their schedule at some point. Additionally, there'll be after school and summer workshops. And in fall of 2024, we're going to have office hours that the teachers will be able to attend. So if they're working on an IEP and they want to collaborate with an ETF or a lead, they'll be able to attend and they can work on that IEP together. Next slide. Paraprofessionals will also be working with Alan Bloom. He's going to use the new IEP form to show them how they can support students within their classrooms. General education teachers can sign up for a 4-part series. And all educational staff will be given a brief overview at the school's building meetings, and those dates vary by school. Parents will be provided with information via the Special Education Parents Advisory Council, also known as CPAC. They will be given information at each school's open house, again, which varies by date. There'll be a listening session provided by Office of Student Support, where they'll also be able to ask questions. In the spring, OSS will get an informational guide out to parents regarding this new IEP form. There will also be information in the monthly parent newsletter. The spring IEP meetings, staff will begin to tell parents what to expect in the fall in regard to the new IEP and the forum looking a little bit different. They'll also be able to tell them about these opportunities for these listening sessions and information that's being distributed. And we will continue to offer support to parents in fall of 2024. We also added the Family Resource Center in January, so they're going to be using our internal resource that was recorded by Alan Bloom, and then they'll be meeting with the Office of Student Support to answer any of their questions, because they often work with the families and the families go to them with questions. So they should be aware of some of the changes to the IEP. Next slide. This is just a chronological visual representation. And the old IEP versus the new IEP. So it's a lot of the same information, it's just presented differently. Take, for example, at the top, previously it was referred to as a PLEP. That's the present level of educational performance. And now it's a PLEF, if you look. So it's now the present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. With the new language, there'll be new acronyms. But overall, the new IEP is more data-driven. It allows for more student voice, and it's language that is both parent and student friendly. Another change to the IEP is that the transition plan and form will be a part of the body of the IEP. Previously, it was part of the process, but it wasn't in the IEP. So this is for students aged 14 and older, and that's for them to identify a post-secondary vision, the action steps to achieve that vision, and the supports they'll have along the way. Next slide. Questions?
That's an awful lot of information. Are you guys over your head with the trainings?
So far, I think it's gone really well. Again, it's touch and go, and when we see, like, the leads did come to us and said we needed more, so we're really getting feedback and seeing and navigating as we go and trying to meet the needs as they arise. Any other questions?
Any questions from the board?
Okay, thank you. Oh, and I'll pass it over to Kimberly.
Thank you.
Hi there, good evening, board. My name is Kim Kozak, and I am the Director of Staff and Professional Development here in Lawrence, and I want to give you a brief overview of what our department is doing regarding high-quality learning in Lawrence. If you would mind, go to the next slide, please. Thank you, Dave. We have taken some of the money that was earmarked through the Student Opportunity Act and made sure that we had a focus on developing high-quality professional learning for our teachers, paras, related service providers in Lawrence. Making sure that there's a focus on capacity building, this word we keep hearing, and making sure that we're able to institute as many supports as possible. Next slide, please. Part of our ability to do, or part of the way that we looked at doing this was to seek out experts or specialists in their field and make sure that we're having them be available to our teachers. This is both through larger, longer series workshops, so again, not a one and done, more of a year-long project or several years project that the teachers can really build that relationship with the providers and have them get to know each other so they can really problem solve with what's happening in the classroom with our students. We have also looked at feedback from the Lawrence Public Schools teaching community and what it is that they need, and one of the pieces of feedback was smaller groups so you can get that more intimate setting, and so we've developed some boutique-style workshops, both with some of our outside consultants as well as professionals that we have in staff that already are doing some of this boots-on-the-ground work. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please. I want to leave you with a couple key points of interest about what this has looked like from July to December. These are some of our year-long or multi-year initiatives that we have. This is not an exhaustive list. There is certainly more that is happening and more to come, but I wanted to make sure that I share. Some of these may sound familiar: the co-teaching initiative, Wilson, Universal Design for Learning, all of what we're doing with SEL and social emotional learning. So these are just some of the key points. Next slide, please. Number two, I want to leave you with the idea that these are some of the experts that we have looked to in the field, and by being able to have access to specialists that we have in the areas of autism and executive functioning, building healthy relationships, social emotional learning, we have this incredible wealth of resource that we're able to tap onto. And continuing on that for the next slide, there's also these in-house staff that we have that are offering also additional boutique-style offerings. Part of the benefit in that is that there's already this relationship of, peers that understand the specifics in Lawrence and what may or may not be happening. It makes communication easier. Again, there's a huge focus both externally and internally to be doing learning walks, to be doing coaching sessions, and we've been able to pinpoint 20 internal staff who are offering boutique sessions. We've been able to hit 560 participants just from July to December, and again, being able to offer real-time examples, hear their feedback, and adjust our services accordingly has been crucial to this success and growth for everyone. Last slide. Just some overall highlights. More than 1,600 staff from the district have been able to participate in professional development just in the last 5 months, which is absolutely incredible. Of course, we hope that this number is going to double between January and June. We welcome your feedback and any questions that you may have.
Anybody? I'm impressed with how you're handling the professional development. For too long, it's been, like you said, one and done. This seems very comprehensive, and it sounds to me, by your enthusiasm, that the staff is welcoming this type of professional development. So to your credit, I'd like to thank you for organizing that with your team.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Danielle Archambault, and she is going to talk to you as our Director of Inclusion.
Good evening, members of the board. Late evening at this point. I am Dr. Danielle Archambault. I am so excited to be here with y'all this evening to give you an update on how we are collectively working to build a more inclusive educational experience for all students here at Lawrence. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. You can stay on that one, sir. First, let's start with a quick overview of what inclusion is, and I'm taking this directly from the DESE Guidebook for Inclusive Practice. And I quote, "Inclusion is not necessarily a placement or a setting. It involves the implementation of systems and processes that allow students to learn within an educational community." I'm setting the stage for the systems and processes that I'm going to explain in my future slides. Next slide, please, sir. Thank you. Here is an overarching timeline of our stakeholder involvement. First things first, the role of Director of Inclusion began January 4th, 2023, not even a year ago. And here I am. Next, beginning in January through March, one of the first initiatives I undertook was to visit each and every specialized program classroom in the district, to the tune of 50 at that point in time. Following, in February, I sent out a specialized program survey to our building leaders and sat with them via Zoom to obtain some information via feedback sessions. Next, we repeated that same process in March with our specialized program classroom teachers, and then in April with our specialized program families. Taking all that data and summarizing it, we decided to use the information collected across all sources to develop our next steps based on this feedback. Next slide, please. Here is a summary of the data that was collected across all three stakeholder areas: principals, teachers, and families. And in the essence of time, I'm not going to go too in-depth with this, but there are commonalities across all three groups. Everyone identified a need for additional professional development opportunities for our teachers and paraprofessionals working in specialized programs. It was also identified that classroom teachers and principals felt as if there was a requirement for the use of additional hands-on learning materials in their classroom environments. And our parents also identified that they would like to see some additional resources being provided for ongoing topics that were of interest to them as far as their students' needs. Next slide, please. And in future slides, I'm going to talk about how we address those areas. Just in the essence of time, I'm going to keep it moving forward. Next is our timeline of what efforts were put forth to support family engagement. And again, I spoke to some of these already, but just to break it down, first things first was a family survey. We did this in an effort to collect and analyze data, learning more about similarities and experiences across our students and families who are accessing specialized program supports. Next, we held family feedback sessions. This was the opportunity for parents to provide feedback real-time on their experiences. We then had our first ever Office of Student Support Services open house, during which we attempted to connect families to outside resources and help our families create a sense of community across all of the specialized program settings. Lastly, and this is still a work in progress, is we are offering monthly listening sessions where we have monthly guest presenters who are sharing information on important topics that were identified by our families through that survey data and feedback collected to date. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so what do we do next? We have all this great data and information, and now it's where we are and what we do with it, essentially. So as of August 2023, which is only a few short months ago, we began to create the Inclusive Education Team, some of which are here in the audience tonight. This team was created, and it has multi-layers of support built right into it. So from the top here, we have a variety of expert, consultant, support, people who are experts in the field that are sounding board for the team. We work very closely with Dr. Patricia McDade, who is our district inclusion consultant, Dr. James Lucelli, who is a board-certified behavior analyst and psychologist, as well as Dr. Jennifer Montgomery, who is our UDL guru. The team is also comprised of 5 board-certified behavior analysts. Their responsibilities include supporting the application of tiered behavioral supports and the use of evidence-based practice within our specialized program classrooms. We do have 2 instructional coaches, and they're tasked with the responsibility of increasing consistency, instructional rigor, and further perpetuating high expectations for all student learners through the application of the technology and the resources we are providing. And lastly, a wonderful addition, our behavior specialists. We have 3 right now. These wonderful people are providing targeted in-situation training to paraprofessionals using a behavioral skills training model. This is shoulder-to-shoulder coaching in specialized program classroom settings for our paras to help support the needs of students. Next slide, please, sir. Thank you. All right, as far as additional resources that have been allocated this year, we'll start with supplementary curriculum tools. And we are utilizing Teachtown curriculum in an effort to support a wide variety of student presentation and learner groups. We have 3 offshoots found within the Teachtown curriculum. First is Encore. Encore is a K-12 standards-aligned and evidence-based adapted core curriculum. There's an additional layer to this core content that is a blend of computer-delivered and teacher-led instruction that's based on the principles of applied behavior analysis. That is called Basics. And lastly, there is an offshoot called Social Skills. And this is a comprehensive curriculum that teaches socially valid skills through animated video modeling episodes and teacher-delivered lesson plans. Next slide, please, sir. Thank you. Also, one of our wonderfully exciting initiatives this year is the full-scale launch of the Healthy Relationships curriculum and course. This will be made accessible and has already begun district-wide for students who are accessing specialized program supports in middle school grades and above. As far as the rollout of what this looked like, we began with professional development for our specialized program teachers and paraprofessionals. This included an in-person overview of the curriculum components in an effort to help carry over what was learned in these 8 session series content units. Next, we also had, or offered so far 1 of 3 due to dates, family open houses. These open houses were offered via a Zoom platform, and they were held at the beginning of each of these 8-week sessions so that parents could ask any questions they may have about the scope and sequence of that curriculum ahead of their student beginning it. We are also offering 2 family listening sessions across the school year. One has already occurred, that took place in November. The second will be in February, with this expert health educator who can answer any concerns or questions from families, but also help carry over skills at home that are learned in school through the use of this curriculum. And lastly, many schools have already started their 8-week course sequence, essentially, during which all students who are accessing specialized program services in middle school grades and above, they will be offered the opportunity to participate in these courses that will be delivered by a health expert, Miss Elizabeth Miller from SEAM Collaborative. Next slide, please, sir. Thank you. Again, let's go through some additional resources. Materials. That was something that all stakeholder groups were looking for more of, so we listened. We started with hands-on learning materials, including age-appropriate learning materials and tools that are manipulative-based and hands-on. We have a whole warehouse full of materials, so if a teacher needs something, we can get it to them instantaneously, and there's very little turnaround time. We also provided resources to support classroom structure and setup. Things like visual schedules, picture exchange communication system books to help support communication. noise-canceling headphones, visual and audible timers, and a plethora of other classroom support materials. And of course, what's a classroom without a good old visual aid? We put together support for teachers in the form of poster makers for each building, color printers for each specialized program classroom, and these were provided to support the creation of visual and communication-related supports and aids. And in addition, we also have provided iPads to ensure that teachers can implement our supplementary curricular tools with fidelity. Next slide, please, sir. Thank you. Appreciate that. Of course, Kim just shared with us all of the wonderful high-quality professional learning opportunities that have been going on here at Lawrence Public Schools. So we're going to talk a little bit about the undertakings that the Inclusive Education team has embarked on. So again, in creating these professional developments, all of them that are listed here, which I'll talk more about, we did so derivative of data collected and feedback from stakeholders. That includes parents, teachers, principals, and paraprofessionals. We designed the professional development offerings based upon what people told us they wanted to know more about or didn't feel like they knew enough about. So let's start with where we began. Back in August, we hit the ground running, and we offered 2-week-long, 35-hour tailored learning experiences. And this was fun, fun, fun. You'll see some pictures in the upcoming slides. But we had over 100 staff members across those 2 weeks participate, which was wonderful. And as a new team, we just said, hey, let's go. We're going to train everyone at the same time, and it was great. Next, we offer early release and professional development day offerings. And we select those monthly topics based on the immediate practice needs and team requests from our teachers, paraprofessionals, and principals. For example, MCAS Alt came up sooner in the school year than we may have anticipated, and so we addressed that by shifting things and ensuring that we could provide that PD at the first half day of the year. Next, we'll also be providing some optional vacation and after-school topics in the future. We will be providing fundamentals of structured teaching, as well as evidence-based practices series that will be offered via remote platform with Dr. Pat McDade. Next slide, please, sir. I know that looks like really tiny print up there, so I'm just going to read the first one. Okay? So I quote this. Let me put some context behind the quotes that I'm going to the one quote that I'm going to share with you very quickly. This is feedback derivative of that week-long summer intensive experience that I spoke to earlier that was designed based on what our teams asked us for. We had over, like I mentioned, across those 2 weeks, over 100 staff members, and we had 92 staff members give us feedback as kind of an exit ticket before they left these intensives. And here is a very impactful quote, if I do say so myself. And this came from an attendee, whether it was a teacher or paraprofessional. And let me start. This is by far the most organized and well thought out PD I have ever attended. I really was blown away. I felt that most everything was extremely well planned out, including snacks, super motivational, breaks, session topics, having tech on hand for people without computers to access, a clear progression of content throughout the week. I felt like the content was extremely tailored to special programs, which is a rarity with PD. And I believe that all presenters had strong expertise and background in what they were sharing. I appreciated how many outside resources and experts the organizers leveraged when planning sessions. I felt like the team leading the training was kind, professional, informative, fun, and engaging. I appreciated the opportunity to meet other educators and paras who are working in special education programs in the district and learn more about what they're doing in their classrooms. And during this inaugural summer intensive offering, 99% of the people who attended said they would take professional development with this team again, and they do. Today we just had one, and we had about 80 people there, so it was wonderful. Can I ask you to go to the next slide, please, sir? And this is just a bunch of pictures of the team. The team is up at the top in the middle here, and around are pictures of them in action, working hard to make sure our specialized program teachers and paraprofessionals are supported to work in the best interest of our kiddos. That is all. Might anyone have any questions for me?
Dolores? Again, I'm very, very impressed with the planning that had gone on. This might be a question for Arlene, I'm not sure. But what I've seen tonight and what I heard from Mac, are they aware of what's going on here as far as what we're doing with the teachers and the professional development?
Sure, yeah, I meet with MAC monthly, and I also
I'm
meet-
sorry?
I meet with MAC monthly, and they're privy to all the information that we are doing in the district, as well as I meet with the CPAC Executive Board, and the whole team meets with the CPAC monthly. So they're very well informed. We actually are we have a committee with the CPAC executives around transition. So we just relay the messages and what we're doing, and hopefully, we can partner with them.
Okay.
Madam
Because
Chair?
this is very impressive.
Thank you. Madam Chair, we're going to table the presentation on MTSS, if that's okay with you, for our March meeting. Is that something that we can do?
I think so.
Yeah, I think it's a good
Absolutely.
idea because we do have a couple principals who have been waiting a couple hours to present, so we would like to get them on, but we appreciate OSSS, and we look forward to Brittany's presentation in March.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent job.
Thank you for your
so
time.
much.
Thank you.
And to wrap us up tonight, we did have a few of our principals volunteer after we asked them to come down and talk about intervention blocks and how we do them, especially at the elementary and middle school level. We have Ms. Cunningham from the Gilmet Complex, and we also have Ms. Marini from the Tarbox School. We're just going to walk us through what intervention blocks mean for our students, and how do we use intervention blocks to teach students at their instructional range to help them make growth.
Hi, good evening, board members. I'm Jessica Cunningham, the principal of the Gilmet Educational Complex.
Jennifer Marini, principal at Tarbox School.
Next slide. So all principals have been given information so that we can norm around what is intervention. I know you have seen the district curriculum accommodation plan. And according to that, Lawrence Public Schools embraces a multi-tiered system model, which both of our schools use that to guide our intervention block. Our intervention blocks are both academic as well as non-academic targeted for students. And it is designated or designed for students who experience difficulties, but also it is designed for students for acceleration as well. I think the visual on the right really helps principals guide different systems and structures to make sure that there is Tier 1 instruction, Tier 2, and Tier 3, which is the most intensive intervention for students. Next slide. Also, each school will be receiving a school quality review. This is a process that all schools have through the School Empowerment Network. And these key components are viewed as having really strong intervention. There has to be systems and structures, meaning interventions blocks have to exist with curriculum for support both academic and social emotional. There has to be a student identification process. Schools have to track student data and discuss student data frequently. And there has to be communication, common understanding, and common language used amongst a school community. Next slide. So this next slide gives you a glimpse of what happens at the Gilmet. As far as systems and structures, we have a daily bell schedule that reflects daily time for instructional and social emotional interventions for all students. We have common norming documents and language, as well as ongoing professional development around our tiered systems of support. We have teams that exist to deepen structures and monitor our systems. For example, our instructional leadership team, as well as our student support team. We also have academic and social emotional curriculum that exist at every grade level. And then as it gets up to the middle school areas, each content area has curriculum. Our student identification process, we have what we call as like a data warehouse. It's one place where data exists for our teams to discuss progress with students. We frequently progress monitor our students. I call that a temperature check along the way throughout a school year to see how students are doing. And we have weekly meetings with the designated teams mentioned above to determine and monitor our interventions and progress along the way. And then our communication and some of our common understanding. We have parent workshops on some of our school-wide interventions. For example, our science of reading, we have just had one last week where we opened up our library and our dean of literacy and our coaches explain to families what is the science of reading and what types of interventions will all students be getting around explicit reading instruction. We provide individualized data snapshots with families, as well as individualized plans for certain students, and we conference with families. We have ongoing collaboration with the district and some external partners to help with some of these Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. And we continue with our ongoing IEP 504 annual meetings with families to discuss further progress of certain students.
We have very similar structures as the Gilmet. 100% of our students receive acceleration and intervention every single day for 30 to 45 minutes. That's a time where we target instruction to accelerate learning. 100% of our students also receive math intervention 3 to 5 days a week for 30 minutes. We have a social emotional block once a week called Crew, where all of our students are paired up with an adult in the building. This is a time for a small group of students to build a solid relationship with an adult in the building, and it's a person that they can go to if they need support and guidance in any way. We identify students for our acceleration and intervention blocks based on data. We use the MAP data, DIBELS data, as well as data from ST Math and Zern data. We progress monitor students every 7 to 10 days, especially the students that are in the intervention portion of the intervention acceleration block, to make sure that students are making progress within their, on the targeted skills that they're working on. If we find that students are not making progress, then we need to look at why students are not making progress, implement an additional screener for students, and then make that targeted intervention, increase the frequency of the targeted intervention for those students. We look at student work as well as data on a weekly basis when we meet with teams. We house our data in on a spreadsheet that all teachers have access to, and we spend a lot of time looking at that data, making sure that if students are making progress, they're moving forward with their learning. And again, if they're not making progress, why aren't they making progress? And what is the plan in order for students to improve their academic skills and outcomes? In terms of communication, we share data with families at PTO meetings, at 504 meetings, IEP meetings, and RTI meetings. We also have students share out their goals and their data at report card night, their student-led conferences, and that's an opportunity where the students can share with their families the progress they're making and what they're doing in school to help them make their progress and achieve the outcomes that they want for themselves.
Thank you. Questions? Maria, question? If I could just add, I find this so interesting what you're doing at both of your schools, because way back in the time machine, and I'm not going to say how long ago when I was in the classroom, or when I was a principal rather, I always felt that each student needed a plan, not an IEP, but a plan, an individualized plan as to where they were and what they needed. And it sounds like you guys are doing exactly what was, percolating in my mind. I want to commend you for that. I think this is awesome. Thank you.
I did want to thank both Ms. Marini and Ms. Cunningham for coming down and just talking about how we support students at whatever level they're at during the day. That they don't have any type of different day. It's just they get what they need when they need it during the school day based on what the data is telling us. So we wanted to thank you. Thank you for waiting so long to present, and we appreciate that information as well.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes the superintendent's lengthy report tonight.
Thank you, Superintendent. These poor people. All right, can we look at the minutes from November 8th? And I'm looking,
I don't think we have a quorum to vote right now.
we don't have a quorum, so we're going to have to let that go. But I guess we'll hold off with the minutes for next month. And at this time, I guess we are adjourned. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.